This is an interview with third-generation Scientologist, now former Scientologist, Isabella Barron. On this channel, I have a habit of repeatedly referring to Scientology as a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. Isabella's story hits on every single one of those points. Isabella is 24 years old. She has no high school education. She started working full-time for Scientology at the age of 13. She was married at the age of 16. At the age of 17, while working full-time for the Church of Scientology, making no money whatsoever, Scientology officials arranged through credit card fraud and identity theft for her to take on over $40,000 of credit card debt so that money could be turned over to Scientology. A 17-year-old who was already working for the cult, making no money, now saddled with $40,000 of debt that could never be serviced, which of course defaulted, destroying her credit history and making it much harder for her to make her way in the real world. Isabella is speaking out publicly today for the first time. Isabella and I first got in touch a few years ago, and at that time she was very much afraid of losing her family, which is why she wasn't speaking out publicly. Since that time, despite Isabella's best efforts, Isabella's family has disconnected, and that is, of course, due to Scientology's family-destroying policy of enforced familial disconnection. When someone is officially expelled from Scientology, they're called a suppressive person or an SP, and all other Scientologists are forbidden from ever seeing or speaking with them again. That's why even though this channel is called Growing Up in Scientology, it is also known as SPTV. It's my hope that eventually the right person in the right position of power will become informed enough or angry enough and pick up the cause of revoking Scientology's tax-exempt status. And I hope that day comes sooner than later. But until that happens, I'm going to focus here on SPTV, on getting the word out every day, as far and wide as I can, in any way that I can, that Scientology is, in fact, a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. And I thank all of you out there who support me in that effort. Here is Isabella Barron. Yeah, so we have been in touch for a few years. Remind me, what is it that caused us to get in touch in the first place?
That's just when I discovered everything, and I was binge watching your YouTube channel, and I still watch it to this day. I'll just watch random stuff, and then I reached out to you. I don't remember how. I don't even remember how I got your number. I think I just messaged you on
I feel like it was
YouTube or
through
something.
Instagram.
Yeah, maybe it was Instagram. Yeah. Now I remember. It was so long ago, and I'm around that time, I wasn't fully sober. I would smoke weed a lot, so I kind of forgot, but now I'm sober. So I'm pretty sure the first conversation that we had, I was pretty stoned, but
I wouldn't have guessed. I don't remember
yeah.
thinking that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a third generation Scientologist. Tell everyone, how did your family get into Scientology?
So my grandparents met at Narconon, when they were teenagers, basically. And they, had 3 children, one of them being my mom, and then my 2 uncles. And they were together basically till death. My grandma passed away in during COVID in 2021, I believe. And since then, my grandpa's just been on his own. He still does Scientology and stuff. But my grandma at one point was the ED of Narconon. So they were super heavy into it.
Wow. If you don't mind saying, what are your grandparents' names?
Michael Barron, and then Kay Barron.
Kay Barron. So to your recollection, was she the ED of Narconon Arrowhead or Narconon Int or what?
I think Hollywood, because she actually, one of her main health issues is that she got shot when she was on staff, and she was mid one of her OT levels. And there was a gang that drove by and shot at her, and they shot her in the leg in her bone. And this was before I was born. My mom was a teenager, and my mom was there during this. And my mom got away. She didn't get shot, but my grandma did. And then she just, from there, my whole life, my grandma had health complications because of that, needing surgeries and medications and stuff. And Scientology's very not about medications and stuff. So she wasn't really an active Scientologist most of my childhood or as I got older. I do know that my grandpa used to do Toastmasters at a Celebrity Center, and I remember going to those as a kid, and my grandma would be there with him. But I always knew that like my grandma wasn't like super like brainwashed from it. Like I could have a real conversation with her, and like I even wish that, you know, I found stuff out before she passed away, because I feel like if I knew about that before, I could have had like a heart to heart conversation with her and she would agree with me, because she was always like, I don't want recruiters here. I don't want Regis at our house. Like, keep them away. Like, I don't want them here. And it would always like be a thing between my grandparents. They would always fight because the church would always, my grandpa is very heavy into the church, and he was the one who always wanted to give them money. And my grandma was like, no, we're not giving them money. We're not doing this. So it, at one point, like in 2016 or 17, they almost got a divorce because the church was trying to get my grandpa to divorce my grandma. And luckily they didn't get divorced, because they were married for like 30 something years, maybe even 40 years. I can't remember the exact number, but um so, and now it's like sad after my grandma's passing, because my grandpa just kind of gave them everything. Like my grandpa sold the family house that we grew up in and got rid of all her possessions. Like I didn't get to go to her funeral because I had just given birth to my son, so I couldn't travel. It was like during COVID and stuff.
Hmm.
And he got like rid of all her things, sold the house, sold their landscaping company that they had for like 30 years, and moved to Florida, and was just doing like full-time stuff at Flag, and like basically ran out of money. So now currently he lives, or was living, with my mother. My Apparently I got word that my mother's moving to Clearwater because they were living in Wesley Chapel. But yeah, so he bought a house when he went out to Florida. He does not have that house anymore. My mom bought it off of him because he couldn't afford it. And he works at Tampa org, I believe, still.
Wow.
And like all that money's gone. And I feel bad because I'm like, you know, he probably really, I know he misses my grandma. Like we all do. Like to this day, we still like get choked up about it. She was like the glue to the family. But it just sucks to see that I feel like he's getting taken advantage of, because now he has nothing left to his name, and he's working, and he's like older, you know, he's like probably in his like 60s or 70s now. I can't quite remember, but I think
Wait,
he'll
your
be.
grandpa might only be in his 60s?
I think so. I'm really bad with numbers, so I'm like, I know he's old. That's all I know. Okay.
Apologies to all the 60-year-old viewers. No.
Well, I think he's like late 60s, early 70s, if
So
anything.
really old,
Because
like
my grandma,
dinosaur old.
yeah, my grandma died young. She was like only like 60, like early 60s. So
Wow.
that was young for her. But like I said, she had a lot of, you know, health complications. And um, during the end, she died just from actually cancer all throughout her entire body. Like the cancer just spread, and it just happened out of nowhere, basically. So
Wow. If you don't mind my asking, how old are you now?
I'm 24.
24. Okay, so if your folks, did your mom have you relatively young?
Yeah, she had me at 21.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, you're right. Your
Yeah.
grandparents could easily be in their 60s.
Yeah, because my grandparents had their kids young too. I'm pretty sure my grandma was like in her, I think she was like 18 or 19 or 20 when she had my uncle Tracy. He was the firstborn, and then it was my mom, and then Chris. So
Are your uncles also in Scientology?
yeah. Most
Wow.
of my family, like I really don't talk to any of my family now because they're all in Scientology. The only people that I talk to is one of my aunts and my cousin, and that's really the only people that I talk to.
And are they not Scientologists?
No, they're not Scientologists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ground we're going to cover. How
Yeah.
much time do you have? Do you have like a couple hours or so?
Yeah, I made sure I have enough time. We'll be good. So, and I might have to take a couple like bathroom breaks because I have a short bladder. So
No problem. No problem. So, you were recruited into the Sea Org at a young age. You've been on
yeah.
staff at a couple different orgs. We don't necessarily have to try to go in any sort of a chronological order. I almost want to start closer to the end, or more closer to present time.
Okay.
What is it that got you, as a third generation, true, honest to God believing Scientologist, to start looking at things on the internet or YouTube?
Well, I was kind of going through my ups and downs like in Scientology towards the end. I just kept getting screwed over. And I was just like, this isn't right, you know, like all that stuff. And then it wasn't until I met that one guy that I was seeing right after my son, he like showed me stuff online. And because he was like disaffected, like he didn't do stuff, but he grew up in Scientology too. And I was like terrified because I was like, there's always that stigma around like if you read the OT levels or whatever, you're gonna die or get cancer or something really bad's gonna happen to you. So he like showed it to me and I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, like is my life over after this? And then nothing happened. So then I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So then I just started like looking more and then I like watched the whole Leah Rememi show and like the Scientology aftermath. And then there was like one episode there that kind of like clicked in my head, which was the private investigators, because I worked in Division 6A. So it works with like public and stuff in Scientology. I worked at the Pasadena one and the Tampa one. And it clicked in my brain because when I used to work there, they had like this binder that was full of SPs.
They
And
really did?
yes, they did. And the thing is, only staff members that worked in Div 6A would know this, or HCO. So
Mm.
it's hard to like back that up because I even told my mom that after the fact, like I was trying to explain it to her and like she just wasn't listening. But so there's like a binder and it was just like these like candid photos of random people and some of them looked like they were like drinking coffee or something, or some of them were from like a Facebook. And I was just like, they're like, security would come and they'd be like, if these people, you know, enter the building, you need to alert security. And I was like, okay. And I'm like a 16-year-old girl. So I'm just like, okay, cool, whatever. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then so when I saw that episode, and then obviously watching your videos and other people on YouTube, I was like, holy shit, like that was literally from private investigators sending those pictures to the org. So,
Wow. Can I
yeah,
explain something real quick to the audience?
yeah,
So in a Scientology org, Division 6 is the public divisions. Those are the divisions responsible for bringing in brand new people into Scientology, delivering the introductory courses, which are different from the major courses, and then getting Scientologists to themselves bring in brand new people. So when you say 6A, that's the public contact division. That is literally the sole job is to bring brand new people into Scientology. And that's why that division, in addition to HCO, which is like the Human Resources, Ethics, and Justice Division, those two divisions would be the ones where the staff members need to know who the big bad SPs are in the area.
yeah,
So, but I'm curious though, when you first said that the 6A people needed to know, or you know, would know who was in those binders, I was
yeah.
thinking that's because the 6A folks are the ones out on the sidewalks handing out the promo, selling books. But then you said that the security basically warned you if any of these people come into the org.
Yeah, that
But
was
why
their
would,
explanation.
yeah, because why would the 6A people be interfacing with people walking into the org? That would be HCO reception usually.
Well, that's another thing that was strange because I was also an HCO receptionist. They always had me
Oh,
on reception.
okay.
And so what was weird was when I was the HCO receptionist at Pasadena and Tampa, like on and off, you know, they would always get that like confused with like Div 6A reception. It was
Mm,
weird. Like it was almost like they intertwined together. But how Pasadena org is, there's two entrances. So there's the Div 6A entrance where like raw public can come in. And then there's the other
mm.
entrance where, you know, public who aren't Scientologists, they would just walk through there just to get to the other side because there was like a parking structure. So sometimes random people would just walk through to go to the parking structure. So
That makes sense. That's right. There
yeah.
are supposed to be two entrances, but most orgs don't have two
Oh,
entrances.
really? That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the two orgs that I worked at, they were big. So I never worked at any of like the smaller ones, except I did used to volunteer at the Montrose mission. So, and
Uh,
yeah. And yeah, Montrose.
Tell me more about the big book of SPs.
Oh, I mean, I don't really remember it, but I just know that they have it. And like I said, only Div 6A sees it. People that are working with, you know, the public and then HCO. So,
Was there
yeah.
a lot of people in the book? Was it fat?
I think there was like at least 20 or 30. I could be wrong. It was just like a picture book. I would just like scroll through it. But it's kind of ironic looking back at it that they even showed me that because you know, I never even met anyone in that book, but I was getting like attacked on a daily basis as like as a teenage girl, like from people on the street. Like people would walk in and just say stuff to me and it would just go out, you know, in one ear out the other, and I didn't really understand it. Like I've had people come in to Pasadena and be like, "Have you ever heard of this Snow White project or something?" And I'm like, "What is that?" Like, and they were explaining it to me and I was just so dumb. I didn't realize what they were talking about. I've had like homeless people chase me and tons of crazy stories, like doing, you know, because I would pass out promo a lot and like body route people in. So like, and I've also had like, you know, grown men like follow me. And I'm like, I'm 14 years old. And they're like, you're not 14. And I'm just like, okay, this is creepy. Like looking back at it, I'm like, why wasn't an adult with me? Why am I 14 years old on the streets of Pasadena doing this for this organization? Like it doesn't make sense now as an adult, like looking back at it.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, at the time, do you remember how you thought about yourself as a child or a non-child, or like, did you very much internalize there's no such thing as a child. We're all immortal spirits and, you know, small bodies.
Yeah, I thought I was just like an adult because I had been living on like on my own since I was 14. So I was just like, this is normal. And like I would always hang out with adults. Like everyone at Pasadena org was like, you know, 18 and up basically. I was like the youngest one there, I'm pretty sure. But then at Tampa, because I was back and forth from like Tampa and Pasadena, Tampa was more of like the teenage crew. Like it was more teenagers. So there was a lot more people around my age. So when I first joined staff, I was like 14 and there was like 13, 14, 15, 16 all the way up. So, but it was a lot of like younger people.
Yeah. Which org were you on staff more recently, Tampa or Pasadena?
Tampa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that would have been after they had their ideal org, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I don't want to get off too much into the weeds on stats right now because there's so much more interesting things to discuss. But at that time, was Tampa growing? Was it St. Hills size?
I can't quite remember, but it was definitely really big when I was at Tampa. There was a lot of staff. I was on the foundation schedule, so like nights and weekends. And there was like at least 180 staff members, I think. I could be wrong though.
For just foundation?
I think so. I remember staff meetings being like huge. So, but that's when it first, like, that's when I was like first there. Like, as I was there, it kind of like slowly diminished. But now I heard it's like a ghost town now. There's really not that many people there.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. That would be very large for a class 5 org, especially a foundation org.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to the question of how did you actually first start looking at stuff online or on YouTube that was critical of Scientology? So it was a boyfriend that you had who was also a second-gen Scientologist, but was himself already pretty disaffected.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
He was so we met at my old like complex I was renting because he was just like doing like working on construction or whatever. And like so technically the people that I was renting from were Scientologists. Veronica, I forgot her name, her last name, but she was renting to me. And he was like he would like a lot of people that I've met, they'll say they're Scientologists, but they're not really, because they're not. To be a real Scientologist, you have to be active and like in good ethics and, you know, practicing the technology. Like he was not a Scientologist, and he was like, I don't know how we had the conversation really. It was just like the first time we hung out, he was just like asking me questions about it. And then we just like, we both clicked on just feeling like fucked over and like all the stuff. Cause I have talked to so many people I've been on staff with since then, and they all agree like a lot of bad shit happens, but it's hard to find someone that like puts their foot down basically and says, okay, there's no excuse for this. Cause like one thing with my, you know, old friends and my, you know, family, at least what my mom would always tell me is like, yeah, well, all that stuff happened, but you know, it's handled now. Like the people got corrected and all this stuff. And I'm like, there's no justice. Like people just fuck each other over. And then, you know, the church is never responsible for it. it's just those certain individuals are handled. But then the people that are screwed over, they're just left in, the hole that they, got into. So it's just, that's one of my things that I would always bump heads with my mom, because she'd always make excuses. And I'm just like, there's no excuse for it, really.
Yeah. Amazing. So did that did this boyfriend at the
Mhm.
time introducing you to this stuff,
Mhm.
did that eventually hurt the relationship, or was that like a real turning point for you in Scientology?
Um, no, I don't think it, like, we were not together very long. We were seeing each other on and off for like 3 months. It was my first relationship after my son, and he was a little bit crazy, and he ended up committing suicide on a motorcycle.
Oh
Like,
my
I
God.
believe it's a suicide because I talked to you know, the older INR, Sydney Schneider, about it because she knew who he was. And I was like, she's like, yeah, he's dead, because I got a restraining order on him because he was crazy. And I was wondering, I was like, oh, he hasn't sent me any letters or anything. I was relieved. I was like, okay, great. After trying to get this restraining order, I guess something stuck.
Mm.
And then come to find out, he was actually dead. So, and the mom was like devastated, or what, obviously as a mother would be, and she didn't like fill out the certain paperwork so that like he would have a obituary, is that the word?
Mhm.
Yeah, so apparently she wasn't filling out the paperwork, so there was like nothing online. But I just remember him being like really depressed, and like I think he was bipolar, truly. Like, I think that was his issue, was, bipolar. Because he definitely was like, I don't see myself living till 30. And so
Oh,
he would say
wow.
stuff like that. So I know that he probably purposely did it, because what I did get to read and what I talked to Sydney about was that like he crashed into like a wall or a truck or something.
Mm.
So it seemed to me that it was a suicide, but again, it could have just been like a freak accident.
Could he just have been under the influence?
I don't think he really did like drugs or anything
Mm.
from what I knew. But again, I didn't really know him that well because I was only in a relationship on and off with him for like 3 months.
How old would he have been at the time of his death?
21, I believe.
Okay. And he was born and raised in Scientology, to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
So a young local Scientologist dying in an accident, I'm imagining that's something they did not want to hit the press. Are you comfortable saying what his name was?
Jeremy Lore.
Jeremy Lore. And who would his Scientology parents be?
I don't remember his mom's name, but all I know is that he was English, so he was always talking about how he grew up very rich and how his dad was very high in Scientology, and that his parents got divorced and like basically left his mom high and dry, and now his
Oh,
mom
wow.
was broke or something.
Wow. Wow. How old would you have been at that time?
21.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were around the same age.
Wow. Is Sydney Schneider related to Malia Schneider? Do you know?
I'm not sure. It's like that was the whole like it crew at Tampa, was the Schneider family. Like they were like, the typical perfect Scientology family, and most of them were all on staff. So it was a bunch of sisters.
Did did were they from Hawaii?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the Schneider family is all very, very white, but they
Yeah,
have some connection to Hawaii, familiar,
maybe.
like heritage wise.
Okay.
Just wondering. That's devastating.
Yeah.
Oh, but
It
you had to
was,
get a restraining order against this guy. So there's
yeah.
like all sorts
Yeah.
of stuff Scientology would not have wanted to become public about what was going on there.
Yeah. Like that's what I assume. Yeah.
That's unusual for a Scientologist to get a restraining order against another Scientologist.
Well, at this point, we were both like not active in the church. So I don't, there was one other Scientologist that was like trying to help calm him down that I would speak to. His name was Ray. I forgot his last name, but he had known Jeremy since he was a kid. And he's actually the one that told me to get a restraining order. He said, he's crazy. You need to get a restraining order. And I was like, okay. And the church knew about it. So I think they were trying to declare him at the time. And
Wow.
yeah, so at that point, they didn't. like he was going to the church telling them stuff about me, but they didn't really have their radar on me. It was more they were trying to declare him,
Mm,
and he was being a threat to people. And then that happened.
mm. It's interesting that even his long-term friend would have basically acknowledged that the guy had mental instability problems. And I see this as an example of someone who perhaps professional intervention would have benefited him. And yet, because he's in the Scientology ecosystem, even though he's disaffected, everyone in his
Yeah.
life and his family is still in the Scientology ecosystem. So the possibility of him getting any professional help there was basically zero.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's right. So I'd asked you whether him introducing you to negative information about Scientology like hurt the relationship, or was that like a meaningful turning point for you in Scientology?
Yeah, that was like a stepping stone of just opening my eyes because, like I said, there was a lot of stuff leading up to that that just didn't sit right with me. Like stuff wasn't adding up in my head. So,
What are some examples?
like for an example, when I was at Tampa, like every staff meeting, the ED would always like go really hard on like we're gonna clear the planet, like we need to clear this planet, and they were so intense about that. And for the longest time, I really believed that. But after working for some time in Div 6, I started feeling less and less like that because, everyone else in the org is kind of sectioned off to the real world. And I'm dealing with real people in the real world that have internet access. And they all hated Scientology. And they would, you know, get so upset with me that I was talking about Scientology. And, there's some small wins here and there, but majority of the population hated Scientology. So I'm just like thinking in my head, I'm like, there's no way we're going to clear the fucking planet. That's never going to happen, like realistically. So like one time I was talking to this Sea Org member who was like stationed at Tampa because Tampa had like a lot of like flag Sea Org members that would help like get the stats up and stuff. I
Mhm.
forgot his position. I forgot but his name was like Darius, I think. And he actually knew me like since I was in diapers because he used to like roommate with my uncle and stuff. So like we kind of knew each other and everything. So I'd ask him like personal questions sometimes. And I was
Was he a
like,
younger Sea Org member, like your age-ish?
no, he was like probably like early 30s or late 20s. So
Huh.
because
Huh.
my uncle is like now, in his 30s. So um everyone would be like hanging out at my grandparents growing up. So my uncle Chris had a lot of friends, and some of them are still in the Sea Org to this day. So he's been in
Okay,
the Sea
so
Org for a while.
there's only two Dariuses that I know in Scientology, and I just want to rule them out.
Yeah.
Darius DiMartino, who's my brother, and Darius Wilhare, who's just a well-known, a guy who was born into the Sea Org. It wasn't, did either one of those names ring a bell?
I don't think so. He
Okay.
was like an attractive, white, tall male, pretty generic face. But if I can think of his last name, I'll let you know. But
Okay.
it's been a while, so I'm like trying to remember names and stuff.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry to interject there.
no, you're good. But yeah, I basically asked him, I was like, if we're trying to clear the planet, why is it like so expensive? Like, why is it minimum $30,000 to like go up the bridge? And then he basically like gave me like some stupid explanation being like, oh, well, there needs to be exchange because they're all so, into the word exchange. Like there has to be enough exchange for the auditor's time and what the auditors are doing and the church putting everything together. So that's their exchange for going up the bridge. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, whatever. I didn't like get into a fight with him about it or anything, but like it doesn't, realistically, it shouldn't cost you minimum $30,000 because most of us on staff and most of the public are just, normal people that don't have that type of money. Like we would have to be getting loans or have like a really good job to even try to afford something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the money thing. It's funny if they made the prices lower, more people would do more people probably would do Scientology.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, the Scientology would make less money. But the truth is, if you had more membership, like expanding the membership is more important than making more money off of each member.
Yeah.
And yet they don't seem to get that. And it does make you wonder whether their goal really is to expand the organization or not.
I think it's all like money at the end of the day. Cause I mean, just being on staff, like the mentality, it's like it's all money at the end of the day, but it's kind of disguised as, oh, we're helping the planet, we're helping people, we're going to save everything. But at the end of the day, it was always about money, because at Tampa, they were a lot more strong-headed about like selling books and, getting people signed up for courses and getting the GI up really high each week. At Pasadena, it was more laid back, less aggressive, but usually any, staff, like anytime I was on staff, they were always trying to get us to sell books and stuff like that. But it was less at
Right.
Pasadena.
I would guess that because Tampa Org is right in the backyard of Flag, and Flag is more or less directly run by chairman of the board.
Yeah.
And Tampa's probably got more Sea Org members in it than Pasadena does, I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And also they have like Sea Org members, taking their time out of their day to help Tampa. And they were just so strict on like expanding as fast as possible.
yeah. At that young age, and I feel like the question isn't even fair, but I just want to see what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Did it occur to you that like Flag is already the biggest Scientology org in the world, and it's in Clearwater? You've
Mm-hmm.
got Tampa, which is right in its backyard. And in all of Florida, you only have two other orgs, Miami and Orlando. I
Yeah.
don't think that there's not one in
Oh,
Tallahassee.
I have a story about Orlando. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go
But
ahead.
oh
Go
my
ahead.
God, no. I visited Orlando one time. I was volunteering. This was like after I left staff. This was when I was like 19. I visited Orlando to like pass out promo, and it was a ghost town. They had like 5 staff. The whole fucking building, 5 staff. And I remember going there to pass out promo. There was one person in the whole division 6. Like, I was like flabbergasted, and I was like, oh my God. Like, even if I pass out this promo, like, I don't even think there's enough staff to like even, help a public that walks in. And like
Right.
the only staff member, which he was really cool, I forgot his name, but he was kind of a tweaker. Like he was just like like he was not like a normal, like he was like someone they would put in, like, because you know how they would always put like people who are not all that there, they would just make them like maintenance. He was like a maintenance guy. So I'm just like this, and the way he would the way that he would explain Scientology, like people would be like, oh my God, we need to handle him because like that is not a good explanation. So I'm just like, they were really desperate putting him in Division 6A. So, and he was the only one there, but he was a real one. Like he was a real one, but yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it's crazy, right? Because Orlando is a huge destination, international destination. They should have a massive org in Orlando
Yeah.
if there was any actual organic demand for Scientology and its services,
Yeah.
which there just is not.
Yeah.
And, I was told that at one point, the number of staff members in Orlando got so low, they actually had to send in Sea Org members just to have enough people to keep the door unlocked and the lights on. Like, right? Like they actually had to have like there might have been 3 Sea Org members in 3 Sea Org members there, and like there were no real staff members, just Sea Org members.
Maybe they should stop buying like really expensive buildings that they can't have enough people to be in, because
That's right.
why? What's the
That's
point
right.
at that point?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because if you've got a building like that where the overhead alone, just in water and power, is probably more than the org is making a month. Even if you were able to recruit like 5 regular staff members, there wouldn't be any money left over to pay them. Like it's the whole situation is completely non-viable. Scientology literally does not make enough money internationally selling, training, and auditing to pay the utility bills. That's why Miscavige does all the IAS fundraising and all the ideal org donos. It's really incredible.
That's how Pasadena was. There was like a couple weeks that the GI was like negative, so we didn't get paid anything because they had to pay all the bills.
Yeah.
So I never experienced that at Tampa though, because Tampa, they're like sharks over there, so they're gonna make sure that they have money for the week. But Pasadena, like I said, was more like a little bit chill.
That's right. The other reason why Tampa is going to have higher stats than your average org, other than just the amount of attention and demand that's put on that org, is there's a lot of people who want to come to Clearwater or live in the Clearwater area, want to do services, but they're not qualified for Flag. So Tampa is where they go.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Was that your experience? Did you see that?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that can't go to Flag. They would just be at Tampa. So
right. They're a
Yeah.
little too PTS, or they're, you know, they're a little, they got some heart trouble. They had some suicidal ideation. You know, they had a dream about punching David Miscavige. So they're not.
I never got the flag hype though, because I never really went to flag. And every time I went there, like looking back, I felt like uncomfortable. And I don't know why. Well, now I know why, but I always felt like they treated me like I was a criminal in there because I didn't have money. Like all they care about is if you have money. Like it's literally like being a celebrity. Like if you have money and fame, you're good. You're good in there. But if you don't have, if you're just a random person in there, like the vibe, like people would just be like staring at me and I'd always feel like super uncomfortable and I'd just be like, okay. So,
Yeah. They're like, there's trouble. And she doesn't even have money.
yeah. I will say I have gotten into some trouble, but that's also because I'm like, even though I was brainwashed for as long as I was, like, there's just something in me that I'm just too hard headed to just be a complete like puppet. So there was like a couple, you know, I've gotten myself in trouble a couple times just because if I feel like wholeheartedly on something, like I'm going to stand my ground on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, let's jump back to the other end of the time spectrum here. What are some of your earliest memories in Scientology?
Um, I would go to like, so the first time I experienced Scientology is I went to Scientology school. I was like 5 years old. I went to a school in Vegas. I forgot the name of it, but
Is that where you were born, in Vegas?
no, technically California, but we moved to Vegas and then we moved back to California and then Colorado and then Florida. So we've kind of been all over the place.
Did you know the Saronins?
Yes. I dated one of the brothers and I'm actually friends with one of the sisters that is not in Scientology anymore.
You know,
So,
Nathan tragically died, right?
yes, I heard that.
Yeah. We don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
But I knew him from when we were training at Flag together as a good little teenager Scientology staff member soldiers.
Yeah.
Okay, so Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Earliest memories.
Yeah. Um so there's like some stuff I won't get into full detail about, but like from doing therapy and stuff since then,
Hmm.
I realized that I was actually molested a couple times, like in the Scientology schools that I went to because it was from other children. Because I didn't know that that was like considered like molestation,
Hmm.
but I like went over some incidents, and then my therapist was like, "Oh, that's actually like still considered molestation." I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense," because um, I had some issues growing up with just that. Um, so that was like the start of it, which I haven't even like discovered that until recently. And I've just been like healing through that.
Hmm.
But there is that. And then, the Scientology schools. And then when I was 13, I got in trouble with my mom. Cause at this point, I would get like Dynetics auditing when I was like younger. I did like the Dynetics what was it called? Like the seminar, like a couple
Mhm.
times where you like twin up and like you audit. And I was like 7 or 8. And I would do that a couple times like as a kid. And then I kind of just distanced myself from it after that. Cause like I just didn't really care for it. I don't know why. I was just like, whatever. And my mom was like super heavy in it. And one of the things that made me stray away from it was when I was a teenager, when I was living in Colorado, my mom would always like force me to watch like, oh, that was like one of our punishments is like she would force me to watch the Way to Happiness video and shit for hours. So I knew that stuff like verbatim. And same with the Dynetics video. Like that's all I could watch is the Dynetics video. And I'm just like, oh my fucking God. Like I'm tired of watching this. So it was kind of like enforced on me. So that's why I kind of like stopped liking it because I didn't really have a choice at that point. And then um sorry, I'm having a brain fart right now.
Quick question. Quick question.
Yeah.
During this time of you being in a Scientology school, having to watch the Way to Happiness videos and the Dynetics videos,
Mhm.
was this your experience with your parents or your mom just being a public, or was she a staff member in Vegas?
Just public. She's always
Wow.
been public.
Okay.
She tried to join the Sea Org a couple times as a teenager, but she never made it through the EPF. So that's something me and her have in common because we just, can't be held down in that way. But
If you don't
um
mind saying, what's your mom's name?
Stacy Barron.
And she's still in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to one of these private Scientology schools, and so do you have when you said you did the Dianetics seminar? Yeah, so that would have been in the actual org. So
Yeah,
you're like
that was
7,
at
8.
PAC. Yeah.
That was at PAC.
Yeah, I used to do,
Okay.
like so I'm trying to remember everything because there's so much to go over, so, like, bits and pieces are coming to me, but when I was in the school in Las Vegas, that thing happened where I found out I was, dealing with some sexual abuse, but, on top of that, they weren't making me like, they weren't teaching me anything. Apparently, my mom took me out of the school because she came to pick me up one day, and they're just making me scrub walls. Because Scientology is all about, like, messed work and stuff, so they probably just had me doing that and not schoolwork, and, so, right off the bat, I've already had, like, educational issues. Like to this day, I'm not book smart because I've just had such a bad starting foundation on everything that I have a really hard time with like tests and studying and stuff like that. So right off the bat, that's bad. And then we moved back to LA, and my childhood consists of like waiting for my mom to get out of session. So I was just like one of those kids that would run around pack, and and then obviously I'd go to Celebrity Center for my grandpa's Toastmasters. So it was just a lot of like waiting around, and then being told by Sea Org members, "Oh, your mom's still in session or in course or whatever," and I've got to wait till she comes out. So that was kind of like annoying being a kid, having to like just wait around a lot. And then until I started doing it myself, I was doing like the Dianetics
Mm.
co-audits and stuff. And that was, fine. There wasn't really anything I had anything like crazy about to tell about that. It was just kind of boring. But then as I got older, I distanced myself from it. And when we were living in Colorado, I got in trouble for smoking weed for the first time. And I had like a really bad reaction to it. I had like a panic attack, and basically my mom like took me out of school, took away my phone, and she sent me back to California to
Mm.
stay with my grandparents. This is when I was like 13.
What year would that have
Um,
been?
2013.
Okay, so you were born in 2000. I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were running around PAC as like a little kid waiting for your mom to get out of session,
Mhm.
what age would that have been?
Just all like probably between 7 to like 12.
Okay. So 2007, 2012 time period.
Yeah.
Who were there any other Scientology kids at that time you would run around with?
Sometimes, not really though. Like sometimes my sister would be there with me because my sister's like 5 years younger than me.
Mm.
So, but I can't remember if sometimes she'd be there with me, but that was when we were like a little bit older. But I would either, be, left at the org with like, someone like semi watching me, or I would just like be at my grandparents' house or something.
Hmm. So like which org would that have been? Was it ASHO, LA org, AOLA, or Pasadena?
I think it was LA org, I
So it
believe.
was L. Ron Hubbard Way.
Or actually, it was the one with the lion outside.
That's ASHO.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah,
it
they're
was like a
connected.
mix. She would go everywhere, I feel like, because I've been all over that place. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I do remember definitely LA org and then ASHO for sure.
Yeah.
So
So then when you guys went to Colorado, were you not doing Scientology in Colorado?
so technically we were like still like doing it, but we were far away from like the closest org because we lived in
Mm.
Colorado Springs and the
Ah.
closest org was Denver. So it was like an
Mhm.
hour drive. So my mom would just do like extension courses because we moved out there essentially because she met this guy through a friend, and that became our stepdad. So
I see.
she moved out there because he lived in Colorado because they were doing like long distance.
Mm. He was a Scientologist, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So then, I mean, at some point you get recruited for what happens first? Getting recruited for staff or getting recruited for the Sea Org?
Staff.
Okay. So how does that happen?
So basically, to go into the story of I get in trouble in Colorado, she sends me to California. I'm doing like courses. I'm basically forced. I don't have a phone. My mom's like, you need to go do life improvement courses and stay with your grandparents and stay out of
Mm.
trouble. And I was like, okay. So I started going to the Montrose mission and doing like the life improvement courses. And I did a couple of those. And then I met this guy named Trevor Fraze, who I used to have the biggest crush on. And he's like a 23-year-old dude or whatever. I'm like 14 at this point. and he was like passing out promo, and he's like, oh, if you want, I work at Pastina, like you can come, volunteer and we could pass out promo together. And I was like, okay, cool. And I'm like, oh, like starstruck from this guy. I'm like, oh, he's so cute. So 14-year-old me getting a 23-year-old number, gonna go, link up and volunteer. And so then I spent like my whole summer, like just volunteering, like literally for hours a day, like every single day, helping Pastina. And I really wanted to join staff at that point, but Pastina was like, you're too young. We have to wait till you're at least 15. Cause I was like 14 at this point. So when summer was over, my mom and my stepdad and my sister moved from Colorado to Florida. So this is when they're like settling in their new house in Florida in Wesley Chapel. And so after that summer, I flew back to Florida and I moved in back with my mom, and I was about 14 years old. And then my mom kind of just ambushed me one day, and she took me to Tampa, and she had like the recruiters talk to me, and they're like, oh, so we heard you want to join staff. And I'm like, at that point, I wanted to join staff at Pasadena. I didn't want to join staff at Tampa. So I'm like, hard-headed, like 14-year-old. I'm like, oh, I guess so. And then so I was just like, okay, fine. So I signed a 2.5 year there, and I started like right away. And this is when I kind of slowly started moving out of my mom's house, because I would like couch surf every weekend with other staff members.
And you're 14 or you're 15 by this point?
14. Yeah.
Oh, so Pasadena wouldn't sign you up as a 14-year-old, but Tampa
No.
would?
Yeah. Because like I said, Tampa had a bunch of teenagers.
Wow.
But it doesn't really make that much of a difference, because my story is very confusing, because like you can say I was an org hopper or whatever, but I kind of went back and forth from Tampa and Pasadena for my own reasons. So Pasadena actually signed me when I was 15, technically. So they just waited an extra year. But yeah, Tampa hired me onto staff at 14 years old. And
were you in school? I'm sorry to interrupt, but were you in school?
No. I basically, when I came back to Florida, I was in a public school, and I was like getting bullied. I couldn't keep up with my classes, because I'm like, my mom took me out of school towards the end of the previous year. So I was I've always been held back. I've always been held back like a year, because the Scientology schools say they were teaching the right stuff, and apparently it wasn't. So I was already a year held behind. And then when she took me out in Colorado, like towards the end of like the school year, I missed some stuff there. So then I was in 8th grade in Florida in a public school, and I just didn't like it. And I was already in the mindset of like, school's stupid. I want to be, on staff. Like, I want to have a job. Like, I want to do bigger things, because school's small. I don't need to do school. Like, it's stupid. That was my mentality at the time. So I was already kind of mentally checked out. And then just the fact that it was like a shitty Florida school, like public school, I was just like, I don't want to go back. So my mom's like, okay, you don't like, they tried to homeschool me, but they don't, like, my parents didn't know what to do, and they didn't force me to do school. So it was kind of just like, oh, let's enroll you in this homeschool program, so it looks like we're doing something, because we're not. So, and then that's when I started onto staff. But I wasn't like, I didn't have a car, so I didn't have like transportation from like Wesley Chapel to Tampa org, because it's about, I guess it's only a 30-minute drive, but it's further away from everyone in Clearwater, because all the staff lived in Clearwater. So I couldn't find a ride in Wesley Chapel, because that's an hour drive and then an additional 30 minutes, if that makes sense. So I would just like couch surf with other staff members and just stay at random people's houses that I worked with on the weekends, so I can go to post and stuff. So eventually, at one point, my mom's like, oh, I'll pay for you to move in with Kafir, her reg, who is like, yeah, a grown 30-year-old something male. I don't know how old he was, but I think he was, well, maybe that's rude. I don't think he was 30, but he looked like he was 30. He was late 20s.
Rude to say someone's 30 years old. Come
on.
Oh,
okay, good.
Now, if he was 22 and you're like, oh, doesn't look a day under 30.
I think he really was that young, but he just looked really old. Like, not saying that 30's old. 30's the new 20, guys. So
how old did you say you were? 24?
24.
That's right, because you were born in 2000.
Yeah.
I think now I remember when you and I were first talking, you mentioned
Yeah.
Kefir. Did Kefir and Sammy Khan work together?
Yeah.
Right. That's why I remember that.
Yeah.
So like your mom's totally okay with you. Like, first of all, it's funny to me that she like pushed you to join staff at Tampa knowing you had absolutely no way to get there.
Yeah. I mean, she drove me like once or twice, but she was just like not really wanting to deal with it. So she's like I said, I would just spend the night at other staff members' houses, and they were really nice to me. Like, you
Yeah.
know, those were like fond memories of just like, you know, sleeping on people's couches and stuff. Like it was a good time, but you know, at that point it was just not viable. And like Tampa was like, she's not able to do like posts on like weeknights. So like we need to come up with a solution. And that's when my mom was very close to Kafir. So she's like, oh, he has an extra room. I'll pay for you to rent a room from him. And I think she was paying him like 500 or 600 a, a month or something for this extra room for me. And I would just get rides from other people in the area or Kafir himself.
Well, what's Kefir's last name?
Cohen? I think it's spelled like Cohen, I think.
Kefir Cohen. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny. You mentioned that though, good memories of that age and doing that. And I feel the same way about my time on staff and at Flag, 13, 14, 15 years old. And it's funny, like recalling my own childhood
Hmm.
through my own lens. I feel one particular way about it. But, I now have 3 daughters, 18, 16, and 14.
Hmm.
And never in a million years would I let any of them do any of that. I feel like you process things differently when it's someone else, especially your own children, than when it's yourself.
Yeah. I That's how I'm feeling because I had my son when I was 21, same age as my mom, and my son's turning, 4 in December, and I have that same mentality where I'm just like, my son is going to be set up for life. Like, I'm saving up for his college, he's going to get a good education, like he's not dropping out of school. Like I would never ever let him do that. Like, and it's like now as a parent, it's like I'm still trying to go through the process of like forgiving my mom for some things that we haven't even like discussed yet, but it's hard because then the parent in me is like, I would never put my child through that, or I would never let that happen to my child. So it's just like you're kind of like bumping heads with it in your head because you're just like, you can't really comprehend like why a parent would do that. But the only thing that I could say about my mom is like when I was on staff, she felt like I was safe. She felt like I was doing something good. She was proud of me. Like that was out of my entire life, the only time my mom's been happy with me or proud of me was when I was in Scientology on staff. So,
Yeah. You're not in. I'll edit this out if it's a problematic question. But are you in touch with your mom?
no.
Right. Has she ever even met your son?
Yeah, so that was like one of the reasons like why I kept in touch with you cuz like I wanted to do a video like 3 years ago, but I didn't because I was still talking to my mom and I didn't want to risk, her disconnecting from me, but she disconnected from me like think it's coming up to like at least a year ago. So
Mm.
we haven't talked in a year and it was already not the best relationship because when I left Scientology and like basically said, "Hey, I found this stuff out online, like everything's a lie." She just looked at me like I'm a crazy person. She didn't, and also, it's hard to even explain that to someone who's in that mindset still. And I don't even think I could explain it the way I wanted it to at that time. And just she doesn't agree with like my life choices and stuff. So, towards the end of our relationship, it was almost like she was just being, cordial with me to see my son. Like she never acknowledged my existence. She'd be like, "Oh, hi, Noah," like my son, and she would just completely ignore me. So like it was like I didn't exist, and she would be really like rude towards me and just would love up on my son. And like I wanted her to have a relationship with my son, but also it's like it hurts as like a daughter of like, okay, you don't care about me, and why am I, keeping in touch with you and, walking on eggshells for you to just treat me like shit? Because even then I deleted my freaking Facebook at one point because the church kept reaching out to my mom to do their dirty work because they saw that I was liking, you know, anti-Scientology posts, like your page or someone else's. They were like, somehow knowing that I was watching this, I don't know how, knowing that I wasn't even sharing stuff. Just the fact that I liked something on Facebook, someone was finding out and someone was telling the church. And then my mom would always have that conversation with me. She's like, you know which road you're going down when you do these things. And I'm just like, so now I don't even have my own right in my own house to watch videos. Like, okay, now it makes sense. So I just deleted my Facebook at that point, and I just did not talk about Scientology, and I just continued on.
Wow. Oh, it is amazing to be reminded how petty Scientology, the community, will be. Even the non-staff, non-Sea Org community, you're someone who everyone knew was barely or not interested in Scientology. You were just going to go and do your own thing. You weren't out there trying to talk to the press or do videos or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the snitching culture spares nobody.
Yeah. You're basically a piece of shit if you like stray from Scientology, even if you're doing good things for yourself, or if it's not Scientology, it's not good and you're not a good person. That's the mentality.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick break. I can hear
Mhm.
my lawn people outside. They're going to need me to open a gate real quick.
Okay.
And if you need to use the restroom real quick, I'll just be a few minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Okay. So, that's right. I do remember when we started talking a few years ago that it was the disconnection you were trying to avoid or postpone as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a moment ago, you said, when I finally left Scientology, and I'm assuming that's when you finally like said something to your mom. When was that, and what made you finally do that?
That was after I saw everything online from
Mm,
what that ex-boyfriend showed me.
mm,
And, you know, looking back at it, I don't really think I handled the situation, but I was just like, I didn't handle it the best. But I feel like I was just so passionate about like my feelings because I just knew there wasn't something right. Like it was just like hardship after hardship with them. So when I found like the truth, I was like, I was fucking right. And then so when I tried to bring it up to her, like I know like what she was thinking because I know what it feels like to be in that mindset. Cause like those days that I was working in Div 6, there's nothing that anyone could tell me to get me to change my mind. So it's like, it's hard because you could see their viewpoint. It's like through a certain lens. But at the same time, I just feel like just based off my own experiences, it's like there's only so much you can make excuses for before you're just like questioning the whole thing. So,
yeah. After doing that, did you ever find out if you were officially declared a suppressive person?
no, but I think there is a chance I am declared because my mom disconnected from me because the way they did it was very much like handle or disconnect when they
She
cut me off.
she actually officially disconnected from you?
Yeah. It was like
Wow.
after, so this was like a year ago, coming up to about a year ago. Me and my sister had gotten into a fight over a t-shirt, and she I said, you know, I'm going to come pick up my t-shirt. She's like, you're not fucking coming in this house ever fucking again. And it was like a whole fight over I know it wasn't about the t-shirt, but it's just funny to think about that, you know, it was a fight over a t-shirt, but it was like leading up to that. And um like some things were said. I don't even remember. My mom was just like screaming on the phone with me, and I was crying and screaming, and it was like a whole thing. And then my stepdad, because growing up, my stepdad always did my mom's dealing. So he comes to my house, and I just asked for my t-shirt and like one other thing. They brought like 5 boxes of my stuff, like everything from my childhood, everything, and just dropped it off. And then I was just like, wow. So I know this is it because they literally gave me like all of my belongings.
Mm.
And my stepdad basically was like, so you're just going to keep, you know, living your life like this then? And I'm just like, and then he was also mentioned, he's like, what if we help you? Like, what if we pay for you to like go to school so you to help you get like a better job and stuff? And I'm like, if that was the case, you would have done that a long time ago. Like, that's not they were just saying that. Like, I know that that wasn't going to work because how my mom was there's always a condition that, like, I was always indebted to her somehow. Like, when my mom and I, our relationship's very, like, strange because I would always call her when I was having, like, panic attacks or, like, something bad would happen, like, stuff with the church or just personal things. Or if I was, like, even suicidal, I'd just call my mom and be freaking out to her. And she would always, semi help, maybe not so much emotionally, but she would help me, like, pack my shit, get out wherever I needed to get out and move on, do that. So, like, she was there in that sense, but only during, like, hardship she was there. And it was just like a lot of, like, you know, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
Well, you said the relationship with you and your mom is a bit strange because
Yeah, because so, when I would talk to her, when she would help me with these problems, she would be like, I want you to do lowers because, you put me through this and that, and you're out of exchange and all this stuff.
she
And
would want you to do lower conditions to her.
yes.
Oh,
Yeah, it was constantly like that where I was always indebted to her. I was always an issue to her, basically. That's how it felt. And it just got to the point where I'm not going to do fucking lowers. Like, I'm sorry. That's just stupid. Cause now looking back at it as a parent, I'm like, that's just your job as a parent, is to help your child. Like, I'm never going to go to my son and be like, yeah, I want you to do lower conditions, or I want you to, pay me back for this. Like, no, that's just like the bare minimum of what you could do as a parent. Because, like I said, I've been on my own since I was 14. So there's a lot that she wasn't there for in my life.
mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the mentality of, like, you owe me. That's basically her mentality. You owe me. You treat me like shit. It's just like, now that I know more about, like, psychology and stuff, it's just kind of giving, like, narcissistic mother. Like, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's hard to describe, but I kind of get choked up sometimes.
It's one of the things that, looking back, see, my mom was never like that as a Scientology parent, but my little brother's father was. Mm-hmm. So my younger brother, he's 6 years younger than me, Darius DiMartino. His father is Frank DiMartino. And Frank is one of these Scientology parents who only ever saw Darius as like a Thetan that he had to take responsibility for a number of years until he could send him back to the Sea Org. Mm-hmm. And it would be one of these things, but so we treated him like they were in an org, and Frank was his senior and Darius was his junior. And like, if Frank would come home from work and the gate to the fence was open and the dog could have gotten out, maybe, but didn't, Frank would be in, okay, treason, go to your room, start writing up the formula, and then get onto your OWs. Like, imagine treating an 8-year-old like that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that, are you frozen or are you just staying really still? Oh, good.
Oh, I'm listening. I'm feeling.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And, even though I was a true believing Scientologist for a very long time, there was never any slight part of me that had any urge to apply any part of Scientology to my children. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, things seemed okay when I was experiencing them, but there was no slightest inclination or urge to do any of that with my kids in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And to hear, it's just really, as a parent now, it's just so hard to be reminded of how many Scientology children were treated like they were just a liability. They were just a nuisance. They were just out exchange. They were just criminals. And you're like, they were children. Mm-hmm. They needed love. Yeah. Unconditional love.
Yeah. I feel like that was as I got older. She was like that. Not so much when I was younger, but yeah.
Yeah. And just to think that your mom and your stepdad would disconnect from you and your son. I mean, it's not like I haven't seen that play out in my life and other Scientologists' lives. It's just, To me, it's honestly the most objectionable thing about Scientology is how it puts people in a mindset where they will so casually throw away family members who they actually love. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing where there's no other real beef other than Scientology. Like, sure, family
Yeah.
members in the world are all dysfunctional. There's family members all over the world who don't talk to each other. But Scientology puts people in a frame of mind where they
Yeah.
will casually discard family members they otherwise love just over Scientology.
Yeah. I mean, even my grandpa, who I used to be really close to, does not talk to me anymore. And like the last time I talked to him, he was just like very like weird on the phone, and I said I love you and he didn't say I love you back. So it's just like if the only thing's going to get me emotional, it's my family because of my mom, because I'm not over that. Cuz I love my mom, but like it goes way back. Like, this is a Scientology thing, yes, but the mother thing is like a big, thing for me right now of trying to heal from, because I never really felt loved from my mom. Like, me and my mom have always had issues, Scientology or not. I think the Scientology just made it worse, because like even when my sister was born, like it felt like once my sister was born, like she just kind of like pushed me aside. And even my grandparents saw that. That's why I was so close to my grandma, because my grandma and my grandma and my aunt were like, rocks for me growing up, because they saw that my mom would always prioritize my sister a little bit more, because I think my mom had more sympathy for my sister because her dad's an SP. That's my mom's reasoning, because me and my sister have different dads. So she was always more sympathetic towards my little sister, like, oh, go easy on Julia. Her dad's an SP. Like, she doesn't have it great. And my sister didn't grow up in Scientology, like, or she did, but like, my mom never forced her to do anything because of her dad, because her dad would take my mom to court. They were constantly fighting. So she literally legally could not force that on my sister. And my mom always felt like my sister was at a disadvantage for that.
Who's the father there?
Mike Krieger.
You're kidding me.
I know he did a video or something. My sister showed it to me. My sister, like, I'm sure my sister will even watch this. Like, she does watch stuff, but like, she doesn't feel any type of way about it because, like I said, she wasn't on staff. Like, the most she did was like, a communication course or something like that. Like, my mom never forced anything on her because literally her dad would not let her.
I've been in touch with Michael Krieger for years.
Yeah.
I had no idea that your sister was the daughter he's always talking about.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have a relationship with her.
Yeah, not anymore. My sister does not talk to her dad really, and I think it's two things. I think both sides, aren't perfect, but I do feel like, a lot of it is, somewhat from my mom too, because I have a different dad, and I met that dad I was 14 when I met my dad, like my biological father, because my mom was never with him. And basically, the last time he saw me was when I was a baby. And that relationship between my biological dad has been on and off damaged because of Scientology and my mom, because my mom would say terrible things about my dad. And like every time he would make a comment about Scientology, because my biological dad met my mom in Scientology, but he was never super into it. So obviously the most he did was like a purif or something. So he has shit to say, so sometimes he would make comments and then the church would somehow get it out of me, either on the e-meter or just, in discussion. And I'd be like, oh yeah, my dad like mentioned the Leah Rememi show or something. And then they would be like, okay, well, you need to disconnect. Like, sometimes they wouldn't even say handle. They're just like, he's suppressive. You need to disconnect. So, my teen years was a lot of on and off with my dad. And now to this day, me and my dad talk here and there, but we'll never have that like strong, bond that, a daughter and father has, because that just takes time, So I can understand why, my sister Julia and her dad Mike don't have the strongest relationship, And, you know, it does have a lot to do with Scientology. But again, I could just be brainwashed from my mom because she told me stuff about him too that they did during their relationship, but not necessarily like anything towards Julia, just stuff in the relationship. But again, like that's not a child's business. Like we shouldn't be knowing what's going on in her relationships. Like she should keep that separate, you know?
There was definitely, from what I understand, some parental alienation going on there. But I will say,
Oh yeah, for sure.
from
No, I
from
agree
what
on that.
from
Yeah.
what little I do know, it seems like it was very, very, very messy on both sides, with a child being dragged into things on both sides that she had absolutely no business being dragged into as a child.
Yeah.
Um, and I know my assistance was sought out in that whole affair at some point, and I very quickly got to a point where I was like, no, what's happening here is not right on both sides, not right at
Mhm.
all. But I had no idea that was your sister.
Yeah.
Wow. Is she a Scientologist now?
No, that's like another thing that I'm upset with my mom about because she made my sister finish school and stuff. So my sister finished high school. Like I'm pretty sure she's living with like her college boyfriend or something and she's living her life. And like she just hit me up a little bit ago and she was like, "How are you?" And that was like the first time I had talked to her since the fight.
Mm.
But something felt like it was from my mom too, so I just didn't really go into, like, detail about anything, so I'm just like it just felt a little weird, but
Wow. So the disconnection with your family, if you weren't declared an SP,
mhm.
then there's no mandatory disconnection required there. So, did they say we're disconnecting because you're antisocial, you're connected to SPs, or did they make it seem like we just don't approve of how you're living your life? And
They just said they don't approve how I live my life because they
wow,
don't like, another reason why I didn't wanna do a video for a while is because of my line of work. I'm an exotic dancer, and they don't approve of that, and, it's just a temporary thing, like, I don't want that for myself either, but it pays the bills, and I've been able to save up a lot of money from that and, kind of build for my future, and, I've gotten a lot of good things out of it compared to the bad, and that's why I would be, really disappointed in my mom because I'm just like, "Oh, I could pay my bills now. I could take care of myself. My survival is like 100 times better than it ever was in Scientology." And you're so disappointed in me and you hate me and my lifestyle because at the time I would self-medicate with marijuana and she didn't approve of that either. So it was
mm,
just like a lot of things that she didn't agree on and we would bump heads on, but it's just funny to think about because it's the first time in my life that I felt okay for once. Like I felt like I was doing good for myself because I wasn't asking her for money, I wasn't calling her up having mental breakdowns, I wasn't asking her for help in a way. So it's like, "Hey, like aren't you proud of me for like dealing with my own shit, taking matters into my own hands?" And
mm,
she just doesn't see it that way.
hmm. Wow.
Even my aunt that I talked to, my mom also disconnected from my aunt. Um, so we both like get choked up about it to this day. Like we're like, you know what? It sucks that Stacy can't see, you know, the real world, I guess, to the point where she has to and granted, my aunt has stage 4 lung cancer. There's a chance she might not even live much longer. Like she's a rock star, like she's beat cancer, like breast cancer 3 other times, but like after my grandma died, something just changed in my mom, like mentally. Like I don't know what it was, but like her humanity is just off because why would you disconnect from someone who's been in our lives this like my aunt has been there since my mom was born. Like she's my great aunt technically. So she's my grandpa's sister.
Uh,
She's been around our whole lives. She's been like a rock to our family, and we were always close growing up. We would always go to my aunt Roma's house in Sacramento, me, my mom, and my sister. We were all like a little crew. So it's like, why would you let little things break up a lifelong relationship? And same goes for me. It's like, okay, I know you think I'm a piece of shit and a failure or whatever because I didn't make it in Scientology and you don't agree with what I do in my life, but, you know, why can't you just accept me for who I am? And, you know, it's not even to the point of accepting. It's just nothing will ever be good enough in a way, you know? So it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. It just always feels like there's just that rock there that's just keeping us apart in my mom's mind. I don't understand it. Like I said, like Scientology or not, like that's one of my biggest points right now of like hurt in my heart is with my mom because we don't have a good relationship. And I like to blame it on Scientology a lot because I think it does change her viewpoints on stuff, but there's a good chance it's just her own mental illness because it's crazy growing up in Scientology because they don't believe in, you know, mental health. But like after leaving Scientology, I, you know, did some personal healing and I'm like, oh my God, mental health is actually so important. And I've been dealing with depression and anxiety for years and I didn't even realize. And once you realize that, you can start to heal from it, you know? So I think my mom might have some type of, you know, mental issue that she's not dealing with. And she thinks Scientology is going to help that, but it's not helping because she doesn't talk to she doesn't talk to her two uncles either, or my two uncles. So her two brothers, she doesn't talk to her brothers. She doesn't talk to my aunt. She doesn't talk to me or my son.
Even though
So
the brothers are still in Scientology?
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There's like my family goes back into beef. Like there's beef that's even before my time between certain members. And the reason why it was all glued and kept together was from my grandma. My grandma was the rock of the family. And since she's been gone, it's been fucking crazy, like chaos. People going off on each other, people not being in each other's lives anymore because she's not there to keep the peace.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of all crumbled, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got a question. You said about your mom.
Yeah.
You said like totally aside from Scientology, you said there's these other issues. It's more like mom-daughter issues, totally aside from Scientology. But if she was born and raised in Scientology, and if you were born and raised in Scientology, how do you separate it out from Scientology?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess you can't really know the difference. I guess I just try to give her the benefit of the doubt because, you know, I still see because I know she was a single mom growing up, like me and my sister, and I was a single mom for a while too, so I know the struggle. But there's still certain things, like I said, I wouldn't do or I would do. So it's hard, but yeah, I definitely feel like Scientology plays a big role on how she handles situations and how she responds as a mother. But also I feel like she has that kind of like permanent mentality of just she's always the victim and everyone else is the perpetrator in a way with situations.
Yeah. You know, now that I've asked the question, I think I really do know what you mean. I think you were saying you have personal problems with each other that may or may not be influenced by her Scientology mindset, but isn't about Scientology.
Yes and no, yeah.
Okay.
It's like a 50-50, you know? Like I said, you know, now looking at it from what you just said, if I looked at it, okay, let's just say she had a better upbringing and because she didn't finish school either. Like she dropped out of school. So let's just say she finished high school and had a decent job and had a husband and then had me, or even a boyfriend and then had me because I was kind of a one night stand. I'm not quite sure. Like if she had a better upbringing and all that, do I think she would have been better to me? Yes. But again, at, you know, going over everything, she was coping in her own way too of my childhood. Like I give it to her as like a single mom of two. Like I know she was trying her best. But again, it's that's where I get really kind of conflicted because I'm like, okay, you were trying your best, but then also your best isn't good enough in a way. And I know like my generation is growing up looking back at like childhood trauma, and a lot of us can just blame our parents for everything. Like I'm not blaming my mom for everything. You know, I know, you know, there's many, you know, things that go into it to raising a child and stuff. So I'm not blaming her for everything, but I do feel like there at a certain point it's like, okay, no, I'm not going to let my child drop out of school at 14 years old. I'm not going to let my child get married at 16. I'm not going to let my child donate 40 fucking grand to a church at 17 years old. Like, that's just stuff that as a parent, you just don't see how that would happen, but then it happens and you're just like, okay, well, obviously it's because we're in a cult and that's the reason why. So,
Yeah. Unbelievable. Okay, real quick. My entire house is shaking because of something that's happening in the front yard. I just have to check. I'll be right back.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. There's one of those giant fucking machines out there that tears up the street before they repave it.
hmm
I've never seen it happening in real life before, but yeah,
Damn.
they're out there chewing up the whole fucking street. Okay. So if the whole disconnection stuff happened with your mom about a year ago, did something happen more recently to make you want to do an interview finally?
I think just like from getting more clear headed on it, um, like I kind of grown out of the anger phase of just like, fuck you guys for doing this to me. I was just like, okay, I think I'm like at like a, better point in my life where I could just like talk about what happened and then just move on. Because as I get older, I'm like, I'll be watching stuff and I'll completely forget that something happened. I'm like, oh, I forgot that happened to me too. So I'm just like kind of getting it off my chest.
That makes sense. So you mentioned a moment ago that you got married at 16 years old.
Yeah.
We had sort of left off on your story at joining staff in Tampa at 14, couch surfing, and how that all happened.
hmm
How do we go from you joining staff in Tampa at 14 to you getting married at 16?
Yeah, it's so hard like explaining my situation because it's all like all over the place and there's so many little details. But when I was at Tampa, so I met this guy Alex Guerrero when I was like 13 or 14 when I was volunteering for Pasadena org. This was before I joined staff at Tampa.
Hmm.
So we like stayed in touch or whatever, and then we started dating long distance. So I was at Tampa staff at this point, and he was at Pasadena. Now he was working on getting transferred to Tampa because he wanted to come to Tampa, but they wouldn't transfer him because they were being assholes. And so then I knew Tampa was more cool. So I was like, oh, is it possible I could transfer my contract out there? And they're like, yeah, sure, fuck it. Because I mean, again, I couldn't even drive. So I wasn't like a huge, important person within the church. They're like, sure, we'll transfer you. So I end up getting transferred out there and they make me sign like a whole new contract. So I'm like, damn it. Okay. Got to start from scratch again. And at this point I was 15 and my, boyfriend at the time, Alex, he was 17 because he was 2 years older than me.
And your mom's still living in Florida and she doesn't mind that you're going out to California by yourself?
Yeah, she doesn't care.
Wow.
Yeah. She's just like, as long as you're on staff and doing Scientology, I don't give a shit. That's basically the mentality, Again, she felt like I was like safe as long as I was doing Scientology. And so when I was working at Pasadena, it was good at first. I felt like I could connect with people better there just because it was a smaller crew compared to Tampa. There's a lot more staff. And they were very hard on like stats and stuff. So when I was at Pasadena, I had like a group of friends that I would hang out with, and I was living with my boyfriend, Alex, at his parents' house. So 15-year-old and a 17-year-old living together. And his cousin was the Durayanar of Pasadena. So at first, me and his cousin, we were chill with each other. His girlfriend and him were living in the same house as us. And then, something just changed one day and his cousin just started attacking me. It was just an everyday attack for everything that I did. Cause I was also vaping underage at like 15, 16. Like he would crack down on me for that. And all this shit. He would just get on me for little things all the time. And he would constantly be writing me up, sending me to ethics. I was just always in trouble. And it was almost like a personal vendetta at one point. And I don't know, I don't really remember how it started. I just remember how it ended. And then he just started when my boyfriend turned 18. I had just turned 16. And he's like, yeah, you guys can't live together anymore because you're doing sexual things. And, now this is a legal point for the church because we can't have this on our hands. Now, to pause that perspective, literally our supervisor, Kieran Simage, or I think that's his last name, I think that's how you pronounce it, literally had sex with a 16-year-old girl. And the way they treated this girl was disgusting.
How old was Kieran?
He's in his 20s.
Mm.
And this girl was named Cece. I don't actually know her real name, but she just went by Cece. Atreyu Smith, the Durianar, my Alex's cousin, Alex Guerrero's cousin, Atreyu Smith, he treated her like shit, like made her get off the premises and stuff. Like basically they made this girl seem like she was the enemy, like she was the SP.
Was CC a public or a staff?
I think she was staff, or no, public. I think she joined staff for like 1 week and then she got like fired or something. But they were just making it seem like it was all her fault. But now knowing as an adult, I'm like, okay, that's a predator move. That's all his fault. He should have been taken off post, but he was a really good supervisor and they had no one else to replace him. So that was already like a hot subject where they just didn't want to catch another case in a way of just looking bad.
Mm-hmm.
So when, my boyfriend turned 18, they were just all up in our shit. And they were constantly putting Alex on the e-meter, getting stuff out of him of sexual things that we were doing. And not to get TMI, but I never lost my virginity to Alex. We never had sex. We did everything besides sex. So they're still getting on us for that. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, you need to move out and find a new place to live, or you guys need to handle this out ethics and like go get married, basically. So it was kind of like, it was basically like be homeless or go get married. Like, cause I had nowhere else to go. Cause at the time, I think cause usually I would stay with my grandparents, but at the time their spare bedroom was like taken from another family member cause they were always letting someone live there. And I was just like, I don't want to, get in trouble. Cause it was just such a pressured thing. Like there was so much drama surrounding it. It was just like do or die. Like I just didn't even know how to comprehend the situation. And then I remember just calling my mom all the time, like crying of like Atreyu harassing me like so much about stupid shit and being called an SP and everything, like all this crazy shit. And I was like, can you sign off for us to get married so then they could just like leave us alone? And so she's like, sure, yeah. So then my grandma and I and my aunt and then me and Alex, we end up going to Vegas. And again, they almost didn't even sign his CSW. Like that's how much they didn't want us to get married. Like they wanted, like this is what they do. They make problems, but then they don't want to give you a solution. They will hold the solution till the fucking very end. They're like, you guys need to get married because this is out PR and out ethics, but we don't want to approve your CSW. So we barely like were able to even take this trip because they didn't want to approve it.
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
First of all, can we talk about a guy being named Atreyu?
Yeah.
You know what that's?
Yeah. Isn't it like an anime thing or something?
It's from the Never-Ending Story.
Oh.
Atreyu is the guy whose horse dies in the sad swamp or something like that.
Oh, damn.
No? You never saw that movie?
I think I saw it when I was really young. I can't really remember it though.
And the star of that movie later joined the Sea Org and went to INT.
Interesting.
Okay. Jokes aside, every time you say Alex's last name, I can't make it out.
Guerrero.
Oh, Guerrero. Okay.
Yeah.
So Alex Guerrero's cousin is Atreyu Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's where my questions really come in.
Yeah.
We will very often hear of Los Angeles-based Sea Org teenagers having to go to Vegas to get married instead of California. And even though I've recently learned the reason, I've never heard anybody publicly explain the reason. Because if you have consent and parental consent and everything, some people might wonder, why are these marriages not happening in the state of California where the people live? Why do they go to Vegas? So let me ask you, what was your understanding why you guys were going to Las Vegas to get married instead of just getting married in California where you both lived?
Well, from what I understood, it was because of the laws, but I was told that you could get married at 16 in Vegas. I think in California. I think it was like 18, but I could be wrong. That's just what I was told.
Yes, that is wrong.
Oh, so they probably do that to not catch smoke in LA. Because I'm
It
sure a lot of Sea Org members get married too, and they all go to Vegas. But I didn't even know like the laws on that. I was just told that.
it has to do with the fact that in the state of California, they have measures in place and procedures in place that involve judges and even therapists to make sure you're not somehow being coerced or trafficked. There's interviews
Mm,
that take place. There's private conversations in the judge's chambers that would take place. And they don't want anyone in the California judicial system to know why it is that these teenagers are getting married.
yeah,
And they don't want to have to expose the Sea Org members, or in your case, just a young Scientologist or a young staff member, to an interview with a
mhm,
counselor or a social worker or a psychologist, or God forbid, even a judge, even
yeah,
having to explain to a judge, well, we work for the Church of Scientology, and we don't go to school, and we work 50, 60 hours a week.
yeah,
And like, they don't want any of that happening.
yeah.
And that is why Sea Org members go get married in Vegas when they're teenagers instead
Okay,
of California.
interesting. So that makes a lot more sense then. Why we went to Vegas. Oh Lord.
So you get married at 16 years old.
Hmm.
God, it's it's incredible. And you're only 24 now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens then? What's the next chapter in this story? Your
So
story.
yeah, and I just realized I technically joined the Sea Org like sign before this happened, so I'll explain that before.
Yeah.
But so when we get back from Vegas, it's just more ethics. We're just constantly in ethics, and they hit me with a separation order after the marriage.
What?
Yeah, after. I don't even that was the day I walked out of Pasadena, Oregon. I said, "Fuck you." And I just left. I didn't ever go back after that because it was just attack after attack. Like I said, his cousin had a personal vendetta. Like he was making my life a living hell over everything. Like even like for instance, I was day shift there. So I was working, I think like 8 to 6 or something or 9 to 6, I can't remember. And they wanted me to go on course after. And I'm like, I'm a 15, 16-year-old girl. I'm like, I don't want to fucking spend like all my existence in the org. I'm sorry. Like I'll do the job. I'll do, what you need me to do. I'll make sure my stats are up, but I didn't want to do 12 because they literally say on your staff contract you have to do 12 and a half hours of study on top of your work. So I'm working a 40-hour week and then you want me to put an additional 12 and a half hours of just study. And like I said, I have a learning disability. I didn't like course. Like I did it, but like I have issues with learning shit because of my education is so screwed up from growing up that I didn't like course. So I'm just like, I don't want to do that. So I got in a lot of trouble for that because Atreyu was really strict on the staff members about getting that course time in. So it was just like stuff like that. And then the underage vaping. And it's just funny to look back on because I'm like, you guys are literally hiring me illegally. You're paying me illegally. They put my pay units on Alex's paycheck to avoid having a paycheck from me because they knew I couldn't legally be on staff. So you're going to nitpick these different uh legal points, but then you're going to commit a huge out ethics legal thing right off the bat. Like if I was such a liability to them, they should have just let me go and say, "Hey, sorry, you can't be on staff anymore."
Mhm.
If the vaping and the no staff and what I do in my personal life with my boyfriend affects them so heavily. It was more of just like they want to micromanage everything. And when I say they, I'm literally just meaning Atreyu Smith in this case because he was definitely, I think he, like, if there is a definition for a suppressive person, he is the one at Pasadena Org because he not only made my life a living hell, but he was attacking a lot of other people. Everyone hated him. He only had like 2 or 3 friends. So I'm just like, I was over it at that point. So when we got the separation order handed to me over or because you know what I think it was? He put a separation order before the marriage or something.
Mm.
And then I think after they wouldn't lift it or something, and then I got a non-interbulation order. I don't even know. It was either
That makes
that or
sense.
this another separation order. I can't remember, but that was like the breaking point for me where I was just like, okay, fuck you guys. And then I left, and then I moved back to Florida, and my husband at this time had to stay at Pasadena because he was done with his contract and they wouldn't let him leave. Like
Mm.
after his contract was over, they wouldn't let him leave. So it was just, he was supposed to get on a flight one day. And I was so afraid they were going to keep him there. I was like, please just get on the fucking flight. Come to find out, Atreyu took my phone or took his phone, put him on the e-meter, is going through my texts, and I was like freaking out on those texts. Like I was having a full-blown mental breakdown, and I even said in those texts, I will slit my wrists if you don't fucking reply, because I thought he was, watching them. So I'm like, let me just say something to get him to reply, anything, right? Because I was having a full-blown mental breakdown. And come to find out, it was Atreyu. He was reading everything, taking screenshots of everything, and he sent it to Tampa. And at this point, I was day shift at Tampa, and they got that. And my senior at the time, because I was working in the reg space, she was like, yeah, we're going to cancel your contract because we got some alarming information that you were trying to do self-harm. And I was just like, I just said that because I was trying to get a reaction. And also he missed his flight. And they had him there weeks after that doing a bunch of auditing. What was it? The one with where they sec check. He was doing a sec check for weeks after that. But this is when those texts came in, and he got me basically dismissed off day shift on Tampa. And it was funny because when my senior like caught wind of it, and she basically said I was fired and stuff, she was like, you should get your clear package so you can deal with your anger issues. And I'm like,
What?
I felt so invalidated. I was like, Jesus Christ, like, oh my God, that's like the worst diss you could say to me after this moment in time. Cause I just kept feeling so defeated, And I was just like, what the fuck? And after that, I was like, fuck day shift Tampa too, because y'all are fucking crazy. And then I ended up actually getting hired on to Foundation again, because Foundation, that's where I originally started in the first place. And I was cool with everyone on Foundation. So day shift said they didn't want me, but Foundation's like, we'll hire you. Like, we get it. You're not suicidal. It's fine. So I was like, okay, great. And after that, once and I didn't talk to my husband. My husband ghosted me for like a week or two because I was interbulating him in his auditing. Because all of this was, conspired with his cousin and I know my ex at the time didn't want to do that, but like he was such a fucking puppet. He had no backbone. So it was just one of those things where I really lost respect for him at that point. I was just like, you're not even going to stand up for our relationship. And again, I didn't even want to be married in the first place. Like I literally told him that. So now I'm forced into a marriage, but now I can't even be with the person that I married. Like it makes no sense. So when he came back to Florida, finally, like weeks after his sec check was done, we end up getting like an apartment, or we like rent from someone for a little bit, and we both joined staff at Tampa. So at this point, I'm on Foundation and he's on Foundation, and we're doing our thing. Like he ends up signing another contract, even though he said he wasn't going to. And at this point, this is when we get wrenched. So this is the whole Sammy Khan story and stuff, which I will circle back to the Sea Org story, but we'll at least stay on track for this. But
Sure.
basically, Kafir and Savannah Boschhoff. Well, her old last name used to be Schneider, but I think she married Alex Boschhoff. I think that's his name. So her name's Savannah Boschhoff and Kafir Cohen. They were the two regs for us. And, they regged us for a while. And then I was talking to my mom about it. She's like, oh, you guys should do it because, my mom believed like if it was me and Alex, we could both pay it. Right. And this was just for my clear package. Like this wasn't for anything for Alex.
And remind me, you're both staff or you're public, he's staff at this point?
Both staff at Tampa. So he left.
Both staff
Pasadena.
members.
Yes.
And they're regging you. And you're how old?
17. And he was 19.
And they're regging you for $30,000 to
Oh, they
$40,000
did
for
that
auditing.
all the time at Tampa. Almost all the staff were in debt at Tampa because that's how they made their such high quotas, because they would just be regging the fuck out of this public and staff. And if you think that's crazy, it gets a lot crazier with how they got the money. So basically, when they regged us, they're like, oh, so since you guys don't have good credit, we're going to start building up Alex's credit. And what we're going to do is we're going to borrow $30,000 from Sam Khan, who was another staff member who had 30,000 in credit available for use. We're going to, do the invoice there, but then you guys are just going to pay Sam, monthly payments of $450 a month or something, right? And so I'm like, okay, that's fair, right? Me and my ex-husband, we agree to it. And then they didn't estimate it good enough or something. And like Sam was asking for like $600 a month or something. And I was like, we can't fucking afford this. We don't even have a place. At this point, for the first time in years, I had to move back in with my mom because we literally did not have any money. And I can't remember, this is around the time after that relationship. I'm like getting all like off track or whatever. I'm trying to
That's
remember
okay.
exactly. But so after we get regged, we're paying every month at our minimum payments, 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 700. And I had like a log for all of this in a book, and I have Cash App stuff to back it up too. So then we get regged like another 10K down the line, because at this point I'm doing the auditing, and then also they used my auditing for SRD. They didn't make me finish SRD for like with a twin, because they wanted me to finish faster. So they had me doing SRD in the HGC.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
Yeah. So that's why it used a lot of my hours, because I used it for SRD.
Oh my God.
Because I had they would pair me with the worst twins. I had so many like, fails with the SRD. They're just like, you know what? We're just gonna make this go fast. We want you to go clear as soon as possible. So we're just gonna get you an auditor to audit you through
Yeah.
the SRD.
Never mind the fact that you're paying about $200 an hour for it. Don't worry
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. So I did a lot of hours with that, finished the SRD finally. That felt like going clear, is fucking finishing SRD. No, I'm telling you, I'm like, there's no better feeling than anything in this world than finishing fucking SRD, because it was so miserable. It was so many hours of agony. I was just like, oh my God, I'm clear right now. Like, I don't even have to do anything more. I'm great. I'm fixed. So after that, then I'd started doing my grades, and I had some wins doing that. And then really where I hit a hard point in my life with Scientology was when I went on, I think, grade 4, which handles Surfax. That one was really hard for me. And that's when I started not liking auditing like altogether. I was just like, I don't like this. Like it didn't resonate with me well. And I was just like, I was like breaking down shit that doesn't even make sense. Like you can understand because, but trying to explain it to, people that haven't really gone through it, it's hard to explain. But like as a 16, 17-year-old, I think I was 17 at this point, 17 and 18, I was like on my grades. So at this point, you're a 17-year-old girl crying about how this alien creature just ripped out your baby from your stomach or something fucking crazy like that, right? It's just like very traumatic shit, and you're being told, no, just trust your head, or trust your pictures, they're real and everything. And it's just like, looking back at it, I'm just like, it's so wacky to me.
Well,
Like,
and for the audience who may not understand, you're talking about having to pay $200 an hour
yeah.
and recall things that supposedly happened to you in past lives, millions and billions of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And you almost feel like it's real, because I was like crying during one of my sessions because I felt like this, alien thing like ripped me open or something. Like, you genuinely believe it. And it's so freaky to think about, because I'm just like, it there's no there's nothing to back it up. It's just like imagination, but you're like basically being gaslit into believing like this is your past life. This happened to you. And, I'm a pretty spiritual person. Like, I'm open-minded and stuff. At this point, I'm like more atheist and agnostic, if anything. So I'm like, maybe it did happen. But again, it's like, you can't be sure, like you can't say that something is what it is when you have no, proof of backing it up. So it was just like a really weird experience doing grade 4. And I ended up like running out of hours. So that's when we were like regged another 10K on like an additional card from Sam, I think. And that's when we got fucked over again too, because I think they said it was going to be a certain amount, but then it wasn't. Which I'll send you. Like I have actually email proof, like from Kafir, being like, "Oh, we agree to pay $30,000 the Church of Scientology and pay it back." But I don't. Some of them I don't have. Like I found this one, but I think this is from like. This is just like an intensive or whatever. But I found.
Yeah. Here, see if you can get it up to the camera.
Oh wait.
Yeah. Oh, does that say 2,500?
Yeah, that's just for an intensive. That was.
So, but it does. I just wanted to make sure I read it right. It says 2,500.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was in 2019 though. So
hey, 2019 is not that long ago.
Yeah.
2,500 divided by 12.5, 12 and a half hours is one intensive of auditing. That is like, what did I say? $200 an hour.
Yeah.
To remember the time an alien ripped a baby out of your womb on, planet whatever and galaxy whatever about, 150 million years ago.
Yeah. What's funny when you say that? Because I remember being on staff, every time I'd meet like high OTs, I'd be like, they're fucking crazy. Right? They're fucking crazy. And I always thought it was so like weird because I'm like, aren't they supposed to be like magic or whatever, or like super tone 40 or whatever? And I'd meet them and they'd be like batshit old crazy people. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And now it all makes sense because I'm like, oh, you believe in fucking Xenu and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, now it makes sense why you're so crazy.
I forget what other second-gen Scientologist I was talking to about this, but I was having the conversation about what did you think of the OT8s that you knew? And it was funny that one of the things that struck them about Scientology was such bullshit is he's like, my OT8 stepfather would like constantly be running into things, like opening cabinets into his head. And it's like, where's your magical powers, bro? You're not even more powerful than the cupboard.
For real, though. Well, it's all a bunch of old people if you really look at it. Like, I mean,
I know, but you think 30 is old, so let's keep it in perspective.
No, like I'm talking like 60, 70 or 80 or whatever, like old. I mean, 60 isn't old, but trying to be respectful here. I'm 24, so it sounds much older, but but yeah. So I always noticed that. I was just like, the only time I've met someone who was a young OT was the Dur from Tampa, Sydney Schneider, that I mentioned earlier, which she's amazing. Like, I always looked up to her. She never gave, like, she was always, like, out of everyone that I've met in Scientology, she was, like, the only one that just genuinely cared for you and, like, genuinely was just non-biased and just tried to help you. Because, like, she's been there a lot. Like, and, she was, I think, like 16 and on OT like 3 or 4 or 5 or something. So like that's like a big accomplishment for like a teenager to be on their OT levels. So like she was like the prodigy Scientology child, but I never had any issues with her. But that was the only instance where I was just like, oh, that's a normal person being OT. But everyone else, like, I was just like, what the fuck? So.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the source mag these days, the OTs are getting, well, in some respects, older and older, but also younger and younger. Like the spectrum is kind of like expanding.
Yeah.
It seems like they've made it. I think the golden age of tech 2 made doing the lower bridge so much faster. Well, after you get through the survival rundown, like the survival rundown takes forever. And then they'll let you get through your grades at like sometimes a few hours per grade.
Yeah.
And they're kind of attesting people to clear like super, super easily. But they used to make it impossible practically.
Yeah.
And they're making it so easy and so fast that younger and younger kids are getting onto the OT levels they're getting younger and younger.
Yeah. Because it's all the 3rd and 4th generations.
Yeah.
With the rich parents that just pay for everything and they just go up really fast.
That's right. But imagine, now that you know what's on the OT levels, imagine being 16, 17, 18 years old and 6 times a day for 3 or 4 years, you've got to go telepathically talk to the thetans that are stuck to your body and causing all your problems.
Yeah.
I don't know how more people don't go crazy on OT7.
Yeah. Now that I'm like thinking of it, I just feel like they gaslight you for so long until they know like you're completely brainwashed, and then they'll put you in the room. Cause you know, like my mom was doing like the pre-OT stuff or whatever. Like I feel like they kind of like test you. They're like, okay, let's see how they're going to respond when we put them in this room and tell them this. Like, let's make sure they don't like be like, what the fuck is this? Like, we got to like brainwash them some more so then they like are cool with it, you know? That's what I'm thinking. Cause I'm like, some people, like, for instance, my mom, they'll bring up the littlest shit to like not put you on OT levels. And I'm wondering if it's because maybe they have feelings like they won't believe it or they're not ready for the truth, you know, in a
They're not
sense.
stable enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe you don't have enough money, you know, because that's
That's
another
true.
thing too. If you have status and money in the church, they're like, fuck it, you know, let's just do it.
Yeah.
So
Did you get stuck on grade 4? Did you run out of hours? Did you ever test to clear?
no, I got stuck on grade 4. And then I actually, so after that, 7 months later after my, you know, got married and all this stuff happened, we were at Tampa, got regged for the 30,000 and then the additional 10K. I like got divorced. I was just like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. Cause after that whole Pasadena thing, I lost trust in the relationship. Cause I'm like, I need someone who has like a backbone. So our relationship kind of crumbled, and it was like a high school relationship. Like it was never meant to form into a marriage, but it was, like I said, more of like a forced thing. It wasn't easily flowing. So, after that, um, I got like news from like everything. My whole life just went up in flames when during grade 4, and I felt like something was wrong. You know what they say, like red flag or something. I think that's what it was called. Yeah.
Oh, you mean you red tagged?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what it's called. Yeah, I thought
Oh,
I was red tagged or something because all this bad shit started happening to me. I'm like, I'm getting a divorce. I got dismissed off staff again because Sydney Schneider, the DRNR, she's like, yeah, there's some Sea Org members higher up. They're changing the rules. So if you've been on the EPF before, even if you haven't finished, you're not allowed to be on staff. And I was like,
no.
what? And I'm like, then you have to like fire all your Tampa staff because almost all of them had done the EPF, right? And didn't finish it. But I think they wanted to keep it under the radar. So they're just like, since the Sea Org members had their eyes on me, they're just like, get her out before they start looking into the other staff, because then they're going to lose like half their staff. And even Sydney kind of kind of implied that. So I was just kind of catching it. And at that point, I was like so worn down from like all the years of shit. I was just like, I took it like a champ. I was like, okay, fine. Because there's like some friends of mine that were like trying to get out and like finish their contracts and they're still not allowed to leave. So I'm just like, I should just take it as a win and just, you know, get out while I can.
Right.
So then I left staff at like, I want to say freshly like or late 17, maybe early 18. So yeah.
Wow. And do you remember why they were even what was the reason they gave you for why you as a staff member needed to pay $40,000 for auditing that you're supposed to get for free theoretically?
No, yeah, explanation really. They're just like, oh, you want to go up the bridge now? It's faster this way instead of obviously doing the fucking mountain of courses to get the free. By the time you're done with the courses for your posts, then you could
Right.
go up the bridge. And then you have to wait for a staff auditor to be available to take you up the bridge, which they didn't even really have staff auditors like that. They probably had 1 or 2 max. And you
Right.
already know someone's taking advantage of it. That's not enough auditors for staff to go up the bridge. So really no one was really going up the bridge on staff unless they were paying for it. But the thing that, so this is the thing that really, this was my breaking point right before I found the stuff online. It was this whole blown out thing. So, kind of to put it in a summary, after I leave staff, get divorced, that's actually when I dated Jacob Saronin, your friend's son. And I was in a relationship with him for about 2 years. And I was out of Scientology at this, or not really out of Scientology, but not really practicing.
And this
And
is still in
then,
Clearwater?
yeah,
Nathan Saronin's son was living in Clearwater at that time?
yeah, he technically he lives in Tarpon Springs now.
Wow.
Yeah, and their family is a little bit crazy too. Like they had me doing lower conditions in their family for them too, like that type of stuff. Like the stepdad is very crazy.
Gene Saronin?
No. So The mother is Angelica.
Okay.
I forgot her last name because or no, they all go by Duncan now. So it's Jacob. Jacob has always gone by Jacob Duncan, but his
Oh,
last name is Saronin.
because his dad was declared.
Yes. And also they married John Duncan, so they all took John's last name.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. When you said stepmother, I was thinking Nathan's stepmother, but you mean Jacob's stepmother.
Yeah. No, well, it's technically Jacob's stepdad.
Yes,
It's his real
correct.
mother. Yeah. So
Correct.
Angelica's his
Correct.
real mom, which is the ex-wife of your friend that passed away.
There you go.
Yes. And
Okay.
so that family in itself has so much shit going on. That was not a great relationship. There was a lot of drama, but a lot of it came from the stepdad. The stepdad's like fucking crazy. Like
What's his name? Do you know?
Jacob Duncan. Or no, sorry, John Duncan.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And he just had us doing lowers and stuff all the time. We would get in trouble, and it was really weird. Like their family is just very strange, honestly. And I'm still in communication with the daughter they don't even speak to. So where were we? We were talking. Okay.
Well, you said, yeah, it was sort of what your breaking point.
Yeah. Okay. So after the 2-year relationship with Jacob, I kind of went back onto lines at Tampa, and they said I had to do another PRF because I had cough syrup. And they're like, yeah, you should do another PRF, like get clear headed. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like that at this point, this is like my second or third PRF because I had one when I was younger and then I had another one. So I think this is like my third. I could be wrong. Maybe my second. More than one is just too much in my opinion. But so I'm like mid doing my PRF, and then this is after like the divorce and everything, and I've been paying Sam Khan still for now 2 years. And everything that they promised just was not happening. Like Kafir and Savannah said it's going to be this amount, this X amount each month, and it's going to be paid off in the next 2 years or whatever the calculations were, and everyone's going to be happy, and this will get you to clear. This will get you to clear, they said. I didn't get to clear. I got stuck at grade 4. And that was another thing I was kind of jaded about because I was just like, okay, well, now I have to cough up another, 20, 30K. That's what they were telling me. And so when I was on my PRF, it was the day I was supposed to attest. And I got freaking ambushed, freaking gang banged by like 10 fucking high representatives. Like the chaplain was there, the fucking ED, the Dur INR, Sam Khan was there, Alex Guerrero, my ex-husband was there, like all these people, and Kafir Cohen was there. Basically took me in a room and they're like, yeah, you need to pay this off like right now. And at this point, to give you a little context, Kafir had been helping me build my credit. So my credit was kind of getting good, and they were helping. Like Kafir was literally applying for credit cards in my name to get me credit cards to pay off this debt in Sam's name. And they basically like ambushed me. There's 2 instances they ambushed me, and this time was like the worst time, which was the night I was supposed to attest to the PRF, and they were just going in on me. And Kafir was like reading my transactions on the credit card that he got me, and he's like, you're fucking taking this back, you're fucking crazy. Like he was literally going off on me. He's like, you're not fucking going up the OT levels if you don't fucking take, because I was buying shit on the credit card because I outsmarted them because I was like, they're gonna fuck my credit anyway, so let me go on a shopping spree and get some nice things out of it because I'm gonna be broke for a couple more years. So I was still gonna pay it, but he was like, fucking Sephora, fucking this, and I'm like, he's like, you gotta fucking take it all back, and I'm just like, oh my god, like this guy is crazy, right? And this is when I was 19, and like they were just all ganging up on me. They're like, basically implying I'm going to get declared if I don't take over this debt. But here's the fucked up part. The number that they wanted me to pay off was $43,000. And I told them, I said, how is it $43,000 when we've done 2 separate transactions, 30K and 10K, and I've been paying a consistent anywhere from $200 to $600 for the past 2 years. So you're telling me interest somehow made it go up, so nothing's gone down? They didn't even have their numbers done, Aaron. Like literally nothing, because Sam was also lending other people money. So he was just going from one account to the next. So they didn't even have a number exact to what it was. It was all fucked. And
Wow.
they didn't even know what the interest was. They were just kind of giving me a rough estimate, right? And come to find out, at the last meeting of this whole ambush, they actually did transfer the money into Alex's name, but they didn't want to tell me because they thought I wouldn't pay Alex. And
Oh.
I'm like, I would have still paid, but what the fuck? Like, now they're just playing games behind my back because they think I wouldn't pay it, but I was still consistently paying each month, right? So at this point, even when Kafir was applying for those credit cards, again, he told me it's not going to be more than 400. Like, it's not going to be more than that, right? And I'm like kind of stressing out because I'm like, they don't fucking care about my well-being. They don't care if it's more than this because I'm going to end up getting screwed over and I'm not going to be able to pay these amounts. And that last time, my mom and my stepdad actually came to that meeting where they were all ambushing me the night that I was supposed to attest to the Purif. And that's really when our relationship took a turn for me and my mom because she sided with them. She did try to help me. She was semi sticking up for me because she was like, "Oh, that number doesn't make sense. Let's write it all down." And they wrote it all down because I also, like I said, I had screenshots of the Cash Apps payments I've been paying. They added all that up. I would also write it down in a book of the date and how much I paid. They wrote it all up and they came up with a number of like 29,000 or something like that. So I had already paid like at least 5 or 10K off, like from the calculations. And, you know, as they're like threatening me this and everything, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, legally, I could just walk away and this is not my problem. And my mom, like, basically manipulated me to just give up and just do it. Like, just do it.
So
And
they transferred all that credit card debt into your name.
so
That's
from Alex's
I was
account.
thinking like something must have flapped. There must have been something for them to do that, make that a priority at that point. But and who knows what that actual flop was? But all they were trying to do was get all of that credit card debt into the name of someone who was no longer on staff, so that when you defaulted on that debt, it would be less likely to drag staff members and Sea Org members in Scientology into it.
Yeah. Like, yeah, and actually, I didn't even think of it like that, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense because also Alex was still on staff during that time, so they probably didn't want it to be like a financial hardship on him because he doesn't make that much money. But again, I was also working for a Scientology company, not making that much money either. I couldn't afford those bills. But my mom basically like didn't stand, like she knew it wasn't right either. And again, this is her reasoning for everything. She's like, well, everyone got fucked over in the situation. And I'm just like, why wouldn't you fucking protect me? Like, this isn't right. I told them, I was like, I was 17 when you regged me. It didn't even get me to clear. Why do I want to max out all my credit cards to help you guys out? Why? Like, I've already paid this X amount. Like, and again, this is a real big question for the Church of Scientology. If this is such a bad thing, why don't you just refund the fucking money? Why are you leaving it up to the people, like the good people that are helping your organization make it, working night and day for your organization? Why would you screw them over? Like, we all know they have the money for it. Let's be fucking real. Like, they could
Yeah.
have easily written a check and no one had to be fucked over. No one's credit had to be screwed over. And
Yeah.
that's like another thing that, pissed me off about the whole situation. So it was like after that, I literally didn't even have my account. Like, literally, Kafir like took my phone and transferred everything into Alex's account to pay it off. And then Alex was still like negative 8K in debt or something, but he was still like, he tried to take me to chaplain even after that to try to get that 8K. And I'm like, dude, I'm literally have no money left in my name. Like, it's gone.
So how much of that debt? Let me make sure I understand.
Mm-hmm.
It was the credit card debt that was already in Alex's name that was now being transferred into cards that were in your name.
Yes.
How much debt did you take on into your name at that point?
I believe it was like 32K.
And you were how old?
19.
19 years old,
Yeah.
$32,000 of credit card debt for auditing they made you pay for as a staff member,
And an underage
as a
child.
child
Yeah,
staff
17 years
member.
old. Yeah.
That is mind blowing.
Yeah.
And to get into the weeds, it gets even more egregious that part of that debt is you being given the survival rundown at full price HGC hours, which is just disgusting.
I know. I wish they would have just given me a good twin and told me to just do it a different way, but they just wanted the
Yeah.
money, honestly.
So seriously, I mean, that is like, I feel like with the right attorney, well, what happened to that debt? Did you default on it? Did you have to, are you in bankruptcy? Like, what's the deal?
So I'm finally now fixing my credit, but it just fell off because the the credit card payments for it was like roughly like 3 or 4 cards. It was all in different cards. It was legit like $1,500 a month. Like I couldn't pay it. And my mom, and this is what a lot of Scientologists say, they're just like, just it will be off your credit in 7 years. It will just fall off or just file. They actually a lot of Scientologists say to not file bankruptcy. They just
They're not
say
allowed
just
to. Did
ignore
you
it.
know that? They're not
Oh,
allowed to.
really?
Because if you file for bankruptcy, now the courts go through all the records. They look at who did all this money go to, and they can see all this money went to the Church of Scientology, and they will go and they will try to claw the money back. So there
Yeah.
are Scientologists who've declared bankruptcy, and the ethics officer calls them in and says, nope, you have to go reverse your bankruptcy and settle these
Well,
debts.
technically, how would they even know if it goes to the church if it's going through 3 different people? Because if you think about it, it was on Alex's card, and before that, it was on Sam's card that went to the church. So it's like they're purposely making it hop from one person to the other to make it super confusing, so it's not traceable.
That's true. Now, given the right investigator and given the right depositions, at the end of the day, it's going to come out that those credit card balances were being transferred from card to card to card, but the original card, all those transactions were to the Church of Scientology. So you're right, it does
Yeah.
get cloudy and murky, but
Yeah.
they want to keep the financial investigators out of all of that business.
Yeah. That's like another thing too when I saw the aftermath show of Sam Khan's mom, it made me really sad because I was on staff with Sam during that time and he looked really depressed. And I
Mm.
never knew what it was about. I just heard like rumors or whatever about something about one of his family members getting declared. And then I saw the episode and I was like, damn, that sucks.
He was
So,
so close with his mom, Mary, and his dad, David.
yeah.
And they still try to, through this source or that source, keep tabs on what he's doing and where he is. And
Yeah.
is he married? Does he have kids? Like, but it's again, it's another one of those examples where he had a great relationship with his parents. And the
Yeah.
only thing that came between them was Scientology.
Yeah, that's really fucked up, honestly. He was a good guy. Like I didn't have a problem with Sam and he was doing those transfers for a lot of other people. That's why he was like it was like loose ends at this point for Kafir. He was just like we need to fucking nip this in the bud cuz transaction cycle has been going on for 2 years now. Like we need to cuz at this point this is when they started cracking down on stuff like that and they're like, "Oh, we're not doing this anymore," which I'm not stupid. They're still finding little tricks and ways to con the system to get people to pay for Scientology. Like it's always going to happen as long as credit cards and shit like that exist. Because they say they don't, but they're just being more regulated with it now. But at that time, it was chaos with that whole thing. So literally after that, I didn't pay the cards. It fucked my credit. I couldn't even get a place. That's why I was renting from a Scientologist
Mm.
because I couldn't even get a fucking apartment. Like you don't think about these things, but like when you have bad credit, you can't get anything. So it screwed me up. And now finally now my credit is resolving and it's getting better. But like no one gave a shit at that time. They were just like, everyone's getting the viewpoint was everyone's getting fucked over. So just kind of
Yeah.
deal with it. And at
You
the
know,
end, Kafir never had any repercussions. They said that people got handled for doing these reg cycles, but Kafir, I'm pretty sure, like the last time I heard, he's still a reg. The last time I heard, he's still a reg, and he does these things. He transferred the money into the account without me even being there. He applied for credit cards without me even being there. it actually, the 2 credit cards that he applied for, which would have been 10 extra K, he put my social security in wrong. So they got declined at the very end because we were supposed to have an additional 10K, which I'm glad that they got declined and he put the wrong thing in, because if he didn't, then I would be an additional 10K debt. So,
Wow. Wow, wow. The credit card fraud that you're talking about, because what you're talking about, so it actually is identity theft and credit card fraud. So because even though you sort of gave him verbal permission, the fact that you had someone who was not you going
mhm,
in, applying for credit cards in your name,
mhm,
giving unquestionably false information about your annual household income and all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
That's actual credit card fraud and identity theft.
Yeah.
He's stealing your identity to apply for things in your name, providing false information.
Yeah, he knew
So
exactly what to put in there too, and I even remember he drove me to Navy Federal one time to apply for a loan. Like, he
it
was
was
at the
Navy
bank with
Federal.
me. Yeah, he was at the bank with me to, like, apply for it.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
So
telling me what to say and write and all that stuff.
So
So,
this was being done at all orgs around the world, but it got so bad, particularly in PAC and in Cincinnati, that
mhm,
Sea Org missions were fired in to find out, like, essentially, they had to prevent bankruptcies for the
mhm.
reasons I already stated.
Yeah,
They went in and refunded millions and millions and millions of dollars to
yeah,
people from int reserves, right? Not from the local org, from int
mhm,
reserves. Give refund this, pay this off, pay this off. When I say refund, I should say they actually paid people's credit cards off using
mhm.
money from int reserves to prevent the absolute debacle of widespread fraud investigations being conducted into all of these Scientologists.
Yeah, that I heard people that were close to me that got refunds, and I was just like, "Why can't this just be handled that way?" But there, again, it's all about who you know and if people like you, honestly,
Yeah.
because it's all about status in there. So,
That's right. Because if at that point they already thought that you were pretty much on your way to eventually being declared, they'd be like, "Yeah, who gives a shit about her credit? She's not going to flap. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's too young anyway." You know.
yeah. Yeah, 'cause I wasn't like a diehard Scientologist at that point. I think they could see that pretty clearly because like I said, when I had that 2-year relationship, I wasn't doing anything in Scientology. So it was just kind of, and they knew I didn't have money either. Cause it's like, if they knew I had money, maybe then they would refund me. But it was a whole thing. And um, yeah. So
It's funny you mentioned earlier about your mom and even Scientologists in general being like, "You're so out exchange. You're so out exchange." How about Scientology charging tens of thousands of dollars to credit cards, those money essentially coming from banks, and then
mhm,
Scientology saying, "Don't bother paying it off. It'll fall off
yeah.
after a number of years."
I heard Chase Bank is like, they can't use Chase Bank for Scientology anymore because they fucked them over so bad.
To
That's
this
what I
day,
heard.
to this day, Chase Bank will not do business with Scientology. You cannot run a charge at a Church of Scientology on a Chase card to this day.
Damn, even $100 or no? Just
Yeah, no, it's
nothing.
just they just don't have access to the network. They just disapproved,
Mm,
declined. Yeah.
good for
I
Chase.
I literally heard from an under the radar guy just last week that there was
Mhm.
a big flap at an org on a Thursday before 2GI cycle because the check was being written against a Chase bank and the check wouldn't clear. So it's not just credit
Oh
cards,
god.
it's Chase Bank.
Yeah,
I
that's
tell you what,
crazy.
if Chase, Visa, and MasterCard and American Express all cut the Church of Scientology off,
They'd
they'd
have
be having
nothing.
some problems.
Yeah, everyone would be having to withdraw cash and be giving them loads of cash at that point.
Uh, so how did where did your time on the Sea Org on the EPF or being recruited for the Sea Org enter into all this?
So, I was, like, recruited 3 different times, but the first time was, like, the most traumatic, which was right before I got married. When I had first gone to Pasadena, I was taken off course one day to go to PAC to talk to a recruiter. And basically they recruited my ass for like a week straight. And it was Jeff Spick and Luke Lottie, and both, very handsome attractive men at the time, and I'm like a teenager, and I'm just like, oh yeah, and they're like, you have this big purpose, like you're gonna save the fucking planet, and I'm just like, oh my god, like what? I don't even know how to respond to this, right? I'm like fangirling, but then again, I'm like, I'm a teenager, I want to go to the mall, I don't want to freaking be fucking, dedicating my entire billion years to this, but like they spent like legit 5 days straight, like literally day and night, like till fucking like 1 a.m. some nights, like recruiting me. So then how they got me to actually get in at this point, and I told like my boyfriend at the time, this was my ex-husband, this is before we got married. I said, yeah, can you join with me? And he's like, oh, I've already done the EPF. I don't want to do it. But then the Regs, right? Recruiters. I always get
Recruiters.
Regs and recruiters
Okay.
mixed up. The recruiters were like, oh, we'll handle him. Like, we'll get him in with you. If you could get going, like that will set the example and we'll get him in with you. So I'm already thinking like they have it covered. They're going to fulfill their obligations. And so then they basically trained me to call my mom and to tell her what to say to get me to join. And at this point, I started getting cold feet. I was just like, I signed this is after I signed the billion-year contract, right? In the heat of the moment, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then I started getting cold feet because then I'm thinking about like the reality and the logistics of everything. I'm just like, I don't know if this is gonna work out. And they're like, you got to stay on purpose, like you got this, everything. So I'm like, okay. And for 3 days straight, they had me call my mom like 20 times a day, like asking her, like, can you sign this? Because they needed her signature to get me to join the Sea Org, because they would not be able to get me started on the EPF without her signature since I was a minor. And my mom, like, that's one thing. She was like, oh no, I don't think you'll like it. Like, I don't want you to. And I'm like, they're telling me, they're literally whispering in my ear, like, what to say. And I'm like, no, mom, I really want to do this. Like, I really want to. And then eventually she just caves in and she's like, you know what? Fine. Fuck it. You want to do it? Then it's on you. But, you got to commit. And I was like, okay. And after that, I was like, fuck. I was like really hoping she kept saying no and they let off my ass, honestly, because that's already at the point where I was having cold feet. Like, I'll be
Mm.
honest, like, I don't think it was the right fit for me. I mean, I don't think it's the right fit for anyone. It's like basically you're saying you're okay to be a slave for the rest of your life. Um, so then when I started, because also Brandon Faust was also recruiting me during the time, and he had known my mom from when they were teenagers. So he was kind of like being extra nice to me. And he's like, oh, I remember your mom. Your mom was so sweet. And, telling me these fond memories between him and my mom when they were teenagers. And he kind of took me underneath his wing. And so the night that like I arrived to pack on the EPF, I was like crying because I didn't really want to do it anymore. And Brandon's like, hey, just give it a week. And if you still don't want to be here, then we'll just route you off. And I was like, okay. I was like, you know what? I'll give it the college try, good old college try. And let me tell you, it was a whole about a month that I was on the EPF, but it was very traumatic that entire month because the first week was very hard. Like crying yourself to sleep at night, going to bed at like 11 or 12 and having to wake up at, 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., whatever the times were. It was freaking crack of dawn till late at night. And I'm just like, I need sleep or I'm just a bitch. And I'm just like, I can't survive like this. And also, I am a really picky eater, so I didn't like the food that they had. So I was just like living off like granola bars from like the canteen and stuff. So I
And
was doing
remind
like,
me how old you are at this time.
I'm 16, I believe. Yeah,
Okay.
16. And um they take away your phone, they take away everything, and you're just there. And you're literally waking up at the crack of dawn. You get like 10 minutes to yourself, and then you have to go straight to mess work. And it is the hardest work I've ever done in my life. Like you're like taking down freaking walls and shit, repairing stuff, carrying huge boxes of files upstairs and crushing boxes and just anything that you could think of that's basically the bitch work for the entire org. We're doing it. We're going around all pack base, taking out all the trashes, sweeping, mopping, and you can't even like you have to be running during this. You can't walk. They don't give a shit if you can't breathe. Like you got to be on a pace the whole time to look like you're doing something. So, it was like pretty hard. And there was this one girl there that I kind of looked up to. And when she graduated, it kind of went to shit because I just didn't really get along with the people there. It was mainly like it was a bunch of teenagers. It was literally all teenagers and then a couple of Sea Org members that were older that were doing their, what was it called when they have to do the EPF again?
The Cat B.
Yeah, they were doing Cat Bs. So it was just an interesting mix of like teenagers and then these Sea Org members that are in trouble and jaded. And it was not a great mix.
How many people would you say were on the EPF at that time?
The time, like the last week that I was there was like 12 boys and probably like 8 or 10 girls. Like there was a lot more boys than there were girls. So
who was the EPF IC?
Oh my God, it was the scariest man ever. He was like this French guy.
Really?
Yeah, I forgot his name, but he was like this blonde, tall, buff French dude that was super intense.
His name wasn't Marcus, was it? No, Marcus wasn't French.
I think so. I wish I could think of it. I think it was like, I can't remember. I know they have a different EPF IC. Last I heard, it was Max. And Max, I went to Pasadena staff with him, but he was there like after I left. But Max
was going to
cool.
say, I know it wasn't my nemesis, Ben Monahan.
No, I don't think so. No, this was, I mean, technically this is 2016. So whoever was there 2016, but he was very intense and very mean. Like it was literally like a humiliation ritual being on the EPF program and stuff. So it's like, they just talk shit to you the whole time and just break your character down. And that, like, that's just not the life I wanted to live. And I definitely got in trouble a couple of times on the EPF because, like, so for instance, they would be like, we'd have projects we'd have to do. And if the project wasn't finished, it would cut in between our shower time. And there was one day like this project was not going to get finished. So I just walked off and I went and I took a shower because I'm like, I'm not going to be sweaty in the course room when, you know, I can just go take a shower. And then another thing too is like after that week, I told Brandon, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be here. And they kept trying to talk me out of it. And that in itself was traumatizing. But basically they found out I was mid-process, like on SRD. So they couldn't give me a sec check. Thank the fucking Lord. Because there was someone else like on there that literally was on a sec check for like 3 months on the EPF. So I'm just like, oh my God, thank God. Because I was mid-process. So basically they just wrote me like an ethics program. And once I finish the ethics program, I can leave. So I was doing all the messed work and everything and then doing the ethics program. And those conversations to get me to stay were like really intense. Like as a 16-year-old girl, I'm having a grown ass man tell me I'm going to wallow up in a little ball and die when I get out and stuff like that. Like they're yelling at me, they're screaming at me. They're saying you're making a huge mistake. It was very dramatic. Like, and it made me feel like shit too. Cause like I wanted to commit to it, but like the reality set in that it was too much for me to handle. Like I'm more of a laid back person. I can't be on that type of tight control personally. And I didn't want to be there. And they really made me feel like shit for that. So it was a lot of talks. And then also another thing that made me want to leave after joining is they didn't even like try to recruit my, 2D at the time. And they weren't even recruiting him or anything. And also Jeff Spick, my recruiter, said that he'll come and check in on me and see how I'm doing. He didn't even check in on me once. And it's kind of ironic too, because Brandon Faust, who is helping me with everything, he was routing out himself. He was on his way out, like when all this was happening. So I think that's why he was a little bit more chill with me. Because usually I've heard that Brandon Faust is like the guy that talks people into staying, and he's really good at like recruiting. But he really didn't try that hard on me personally. So the last day I was there, I got into a fight with one of the girls there.
An actual fight?
Not like not really physical, but it was like a screaming match fight. And basically there was this one girl, Prescott, that was on the EPF with me. And she was getting up, and me and Prescott, we kind of like were like bumping heads a lot. And she kind of like got in my face, and she was telling me I can't leave. Cause like when I was a teenager, I would get interpolated very easily. Like, I'm like, if I need to take a break, I need to leave. Like, I need
Mhm.
to calm myself down. And she wouldn't let me leave the room because we were like doing white glove or something. And I had already finished my white glove, and she would not let me leave the room. I'm like, I need to go get space. Like, I'm going to go off. And I was upset about something. I don't really remember. I think it was everyone was yelling about the white glove not being done a proper way. And I was just like fed up. And basically, she was holding the door from me going out of it, and she wouldn't let me leave. And I can't remember if she pushed me or if I pushed her. Someone pushed someone. I really can't remember, but it did get semi-physical because it was pushing and shoving, like refusing a door. And I just remember screaming at her, just like in the most tone 40 ever. I'm just like, get the fuck out of my way. And then she like finally just like, okay, whatever. And she fucking moved. And then I like stormed out, and I remember like there's like 14 boys lined up on the wall waiting for the EPFIC to come, and they're all just like staring at me walking out. And then like one of the older EPFers, he's like an older guy, he followed me and then gave me a locational outside. And that same night they finally said like, yeah, you could go home. And then my
Mhm.
grandpa picked me up, and I was just like, when my grandpa picks me up, I felt like it was getting out of prison. I was like, oh my God, I was so relieved. Like, it really felt like I was like in a prison for a whole month. And I was just like, I'm never doing that again. And even during my time on the EPF, I actually saw my dad once because they allowed me to go get lunch with my dad. And this was like before they knew that he like didn't like Scientology or whatever. They're like,
Oh,
oh
your
yeah,
biological dad.
yeah, my biological dad.
Oh,
And he like knew that I was like doing it, but he just wasn't like, he was being semi supportive, but you know, like we were just good roads, good weather. And he took me out, and he's like, here, let me get you like a prepaid cell phone so like you can reach out to me if you need to, because he knew that they took my phone. And I had like a prepaid cell phone. And another thing that I would get in trouble with, which I'm sure they were leading up to following me, I would just like disappear during lunchtime. Like, I would literally go across the street at the little Mexican restaurant and say, ask the little Mexican lady, can I please use your phone to make a phone call? And I'd be calling my ex, being like, I need to get out of here. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I'm scared. Like, I was making phone calls to my family. I know my family like wasn't like telling on me or anything, but I know they have cameras everywhere now. So I'm like, they're probably
yeah.
seeing me going off base, like doing weird stuff in their opinion. And that
But they never
prepaid,
asked you about it?
no, but that prepaid cell phone was taken out of my bag when I left because they go through like your suitcase and stuff, and they confiscated it. So I'm just like, I wonder if they
Your
saw,
property, your personal
yeah,
property, they took that.
yeah, because they probably wanted to see who I was calling and stuff, or if I
Yeah.
was texting on it. But yeah, I thought that was weird, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get in trouble because I knew I wasn't supposed to have a phone. So I was just like, oh damn, because it was like a minutes phone, you know. So it was, and it was funny too, because when I was on the EPF, when we were like doing yard work one day, there was literally like a bus or something filming us, like all the teenagers doing stuff. And they're like, oh, these are the Scientology kids, like blah, blah, blah. And the security's like, come on, go inside, go inside. And I didn't understand what it was. I just thought it was a bunch of SPs or whatever. That's what they say, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, that's crazy that there's a video out there somewhere of us just
There was
doing
a
yard
whole
work.
they said a whole bus was filming you?
It was like a bus, and it was or like a truck, like a bigger car or whatever. And it was like three dudes with cameras, and they were like
Wow.
commenting on us, and security like hopped on it right away. And they're like, guys, like go inside. So
Wow.
yeah,
So during the month that you were on the EPF, did you finish any of the courses?
no, I just did an ethics program because they technically couldn't start me on any courses because I was mid process on this one process of SRD. So
Wow. But they
yeah.
kept you on the EPF that whole time without trying to finish up whatever the process was or anything.
No, because I think, well, they knew I didn't want to be there from like day
Ah,
one. So they were just
right.
kind of like, let her do an ethics program. Let's see if she comes around. And I just never came around. And again, I'm grateful for being like, you know, hard headed on some things because I feel like they would have taken advantage of me if I was just going to, you know, sit down and take it, but like I was fighting back and they didn't like that. So they just kind of let me go after that. And I got recruited like 2 other times after that from my other like sidekick recruiter, Luke Lottie. And I almost did it, but I backed out the 2 other times. Because it's like
Mm,
essentially I wanted to help, like I wanted to, but when it came down to the reality of it, I couldn't handle it.
yeah.
So,
What was kind of the shtick that the Sea Org recruiters would use for why you needed to join the Sea Org?
well, they would show you a video of how bad the world is and how it's been all this propaganda and how it's just going downhill and we're going to be blown up soon and stuff like that. And like literally as a 14-year-old, like before I even got recruited, I would have panic attacks every time I heard planes going up in the sky because I legit thought we were going to get blown up. Like that was one of my phobias as a teenager because I'm like being told like the planet is going to end like any day unless Scientology gets in the people's hands. So I'm just like, it's do or die, like I said. So when
Through
they're,
nuclear war, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
that was like one of my huge anxieties. I'm like, oh my God, like, and my grandpa would have to give me like locationals and um the touch your finger, like what was that called?
Touch assist?
Yeah, a touch assist to calm me down. Oh, that's why I was very close to my grandpa. He would always help calm me down.
Mm,
Um and so yeah, they just honestly, they tell you everything that you wanna hear. They make you feel very special, like you're the only one that can, save how everything's going, and they kinda just they make you feel so good, like it's the biggest love bomb you can think of, and then the second you don't do what they want you to do, they just switch up immediately.
mhm. Yeah.
So
When they were telling you what to say to your mom, did they have you hit her with the line, "Don't you love me? If you loved me, you would let me do this."
I think so. I can't remember. I think, yeah, it was one of the things. But they were definitely telling me, like, they're like, tell her this is what you want. This is what you want.
Yeah.
Like, to put that in her, like, mind to make
Yeah.
sure that they don't think that I'm being manipulated, even though I was. So,
I
yeah.
realized a moment ago that when you said Jeff Spick, in my mind, I was thinking of Jeff Fair. Now,
Really?
Jeff Fair was a good-looking recruiter, but I might not know this Jeff Spick guy.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't even like he kind of just disappeared after that for me. Like I
Mm.
didn't really see him around much, but it was sad because he really liked me at first and then he just kind of like distanced himself after that. Like when I would see him around, he would just pretend like he didn't know me. And I'm
They
just
sort
like,
of get in trouble for recruiting people who then end up just not even making it through the EPF.
mm,
It's sort of like they kind of, I mean, they don't have they don't keep like an official count of this, but it's like your batting average of if a recruiter is recruiting people who wash out quickly, it
mhm.
means they're either not doing a good recruit job or they're just recruiting. I don't want to say low quality people because that would be an
Yeah.
insult, but like from the Sea Org
Yeah.
perspective, you're not you're signing people up who don't really want to be there. Like your job was to make them actually want to be there.
Yeah.
You
But does
know,
like anyone want to be there under those conditions?
I
Because
know nobody really
they
wants to
make
be
it
there.
sound like, oh, it's just a little boot camp, and then once you're done, you'll be good. I'm sure it gets worse after the EPF. As we know, the stories I've heard, it just gets worse from there. Besides the
Yeah.
mess work stuff, but unless you're in trouble.
Yeah. Did they try to recruit you? Did they try to do the flirting? Did they try to make you think, oh, they were single and available, and if you joined, you'd be able
Oh
to?
yes, wait. They were like literally telling me I could get married in the Sea Org and shit. Like they're like, oh yeah, once you're on post for a couple months to a year, you could get married. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's like joking, but like I was boy crazy as a teenager. Now I'm like don't really like men, no offense, but I've come to understand, but I'm like I'm not really huge, but as a teenager I was like boy crazy. So I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, there's so many hot Sea Org guys here." So,
Yeah. It's funny, Gavin Potter. Did you ever encounter Gavin Potter at PAC?
um I could have like the name sounds familiar.
I mean, he would have been even before the days of Brandon Faust. Gavin
Mhm.
sort of pioneered the recruitment by flirtation
Oh.
specialty, and he would he would recruit specifically for Bridge publications, and they called them the Bridge Babes. Everyone who joined the Sea Org because they thought they were going to marry Gavin.
Oh. I think I heard about that. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
there's literally a lawsuit about it right now.
Wait,
Yeah.
really?
Oh
I didn't
yeah,
even hear
because it's
about that.
essentially just child trafficking. I mean,
Yeah.
specifically, and Gavin was married at the time. So what would happen is you'd have these young girls joining the EPF, expecting that when they finished the EPF, they were going to like marry Gavin. And then when the news is broken to them, like, Gavin's married, you know?
That's fucked up, honestly. I mean, it's weird that grown men are even flirting with teenage girls in the first place to get them to want to join the Sea Org. Like
Yeah.
if your program's so amazing, you won't have to, compensate. So,
Yes. Yes. Now, the lawsuit right now against Gavin and David Miscavige, by the way,
mhm.
isn't about him recruiting underage girls. It's about him sexually assaulting one of those girls, and then they join the Sea Org, and she's forced to marry him.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
exactly. And then she gets pregnant and she leaves to take care of the kid while Gavin stays in the Sea Org as a deadbeat dad. And and it wasn't even the only kid. Gavin had already had a kid out of the Sea Org that he had nothing to do with.
How did they let him like stay on post after that? This is what I'm talking about. Like how
Yeah,
does that stuff go under
because
the
he was a
radar?
hot shot recruiter and also a hot shot registrar. And so get this, by the time Gavin marries his new Sea Org child bride, who's like 16 or 17 at this time, and I'm always a little fuzzy on the dates and the
Yeah.
ages, his new wife, because Gavin already had like a 7-year-old child. So you have
Yeah.
this, his 17 or 18-year-old wife now has like a 7 or 8-year-old stepdaughter.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's still in the Sea Org?
He's still in the Sea Org.
What the fuck? I've heard
Yeah.
of stuff like that. I mean, like I said, I told you my cousin Caitlin Barron is in the Sea Org right now, and she got married underage just recently. And she joined when she was like 16, just a couple years ago.
Where's she in the Sea Org?
Pack somewhere in Pack,
Mm.
yeah.
When
So,
you were being recruited, which org were you being recruited for?
um, I believe LA Org.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was LA Org.
Yeah.
So,
I guess LA org was probably already converted into a Sea org by that time. What?
yeah, there wasn't any staff there.
Right. Wow. Okay, so that was the Sea Org experience. And then after that is when you did staff at Tampa, and then you
Yeah.
got married in Pasadena,
Mhm.
and crazy. So are you
Yeah.
still in touch? I mean, without naming any names, like has pretty much everyone you knew in Scientology disconnected from you, or are there people who have also either left or under the radar that you're at least in touch with?
Um, it's hard to describe who's like, not in connection with Scientology anymore and who is. All I know is like everyone that I grew up with, I don't really talk to anyone. There may be like one or two people I'm still like Instagram friends with, but like I don't talk to anyone that I essentially like grew up with. And but the thing that's funny is like a lot of people when I left staff, we all had similar experiences of like being fucked over and we would talk shit about the church and we would all like have these bonding moments of like, yeah, that's fucked up, right? And they just, you know, uh kept on living their life. I guess they just didn't have like the balls to like completely cut it off because again, you have family in it and it's like why break something that isn't broken at that point? Like for instance, there was this one friend of mine. I'm trying to remember it was like a really hard last name. It was like Brandon Pika something with a P, I think. It was really hard to pronounce his last name, but he left the Sea Org and we like reconnected like shortly after I left Scientology. This is like 2021 or 2022. And we hung out a couple of times, like went to Chipotle or whatever. And he was telling me how his job in the Sea Org was to help like disaffected people, basically. And I was telling him like everything that I had seen online. And he was like, I was telling him, "Well, how do you explain this? How do you explain that? How do you explain this?" And I mean, his responses weren't that great, but I brought up the Shelly Miscavige, and he's like, "Oh, she's still alive. I've met her." And I'm like, "Are you sure? Because half the people that I talk to, they don't even know who Shelly Miscavige is." And he was like, "Yeah, she works at so and so or whatever." I'm like, I don't necessarily think that she's dead, but like she's hidden away. I'm like, I don't, it didn't add up to me. It just seemed like he was like forced to say that or whatever. Like it didn't
Well,
seem
yeah.
genuine.
If he was like a chaplain or something and his
Yeah.
job was to deal with people that were already disaffected, it actually makes sense that they would have told him to say something like that, because you're right. Most people his age have never even heard of Shelley Miscavige.
Yeah. And we went way back too because we used to work when I was like an expediter at like 14 years old at Tampa. We worked in the Purif together, and he again is an older male. He's like in his mid 20s or whatever, but we were like talking about that stuff, but but the thing that I appreciated in him and other people that I've talked to since then is that they didn't judge me.
Uh-oh, your audio just cut out.
Oh, hold on.
So do you think of how do you think of Scientology at this point? Is it something you're trying to put as much distance between yourself and it as possible? Like, is it something you're like, yeah, it's something that happened and I've learned from it? Is it traumatic thinking about it all? And I'm asking this
No.
as someone who like talks about it every single day, and a lot of people are like, how can you do that?
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know, I don't really get tired of it, but how does it all feel to you?
Um, it feels good to talk about it because I feel like it helps me heal from it. For a long time, I like hated it, honestly, because I was just angry. But now, like I said, as a parent, it's more of like that anger kind of got pushed onto my mom for being like, why did you let this happen to me? But I honestly feel like Scientology should not be in existence. And if it is, and if they want to have their rights, they should make it less controlling and free, honestly. But at the end of the day, just after everything I've done research on and the stuff I've seen and experienced, they're just greedy, uh, money hungry people. Like, and it sucks too because everyone on my lower level, like the normal people, like it's actually like good, genuine, like wholesome people most of the time, but they're just so brainwashed. And then I feel like as you get higher and higher, it just keeps getting more like crazy, like with the people of just being evil. Like I truly believe, like I've met some pretty fucking evil people in Scientology, and I've been, dealt some pretty crazy situations. So it's just I I'm not like fond of it. Like I do like kind of, have a hard time reminiscing on the past sometimes because I'll get depressed and be like, damn, like I wonder what if my life was different? Like what if I went to school and did this? Like I would have more opportunity, but like it's now like I'm just starting fresh and starting a whole new life and I have to start all over because, you know, I'm living a different lifestyle and now I have to start from scratch. Like I'm currently like, halfway done getting my GED. I have like two more things on it and then I'm done. And then I want to go to like hair school and stuff. And these are like goals of mine, but it's also like hard on me because of my situation. So um it's hard looking back at it because it's almost like it just feels like my life was stolen from me. Cause like I'm 24 years old and I'm fucking tired. Like I feel like I'm a 40-year-old woman mentally because I've been working since I was basically 13 years old. I'm just kind of drained from life, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking to myself that I don't know how you look at it, but
Mhm.
the way I look at it, you as a child being sent across state lines from California to Florida, back to California, back to Florida, working full time for an organization as a child. And on top of that, then being saddled with many tens of thousands of dollars of debt while you're working full time for essentially no pay. I mean, that's trafficking.
Yeah.
That is child trafficking. And, when I say in my videos as often as possible, Scientology is a multi-billion-dollar international family destroying human trafficking cult. It is your story and all the other stories like that. My
Mhm.
story was similar, which is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. They always
And
go for young people. That's what they're looking for is foreigners and young people because they're naive and they don't know any better. And also, like, I agree with that because uh, there was just so many young people that I was on staff with and shared similar experiences with. And it's all like second, like, it's no one that's just fresh into Scientology. It's all like second, third, fourth generation. and they're all just born into it, and they just do it, and they don't even realize, like, they're literally slaves and they don't even realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I hope when I publish this video and people, because I know there's a lot of people who know you that will see you, doing a video like this for the first time. I
Hmm.
hope it inspires more people to go, okay, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to tell my story as well. I'm going to tell my story as well.
Yeah.
Um, I know some of the mental chains that exist. I'll speak for myself, but let me know if you feel this is true for you.
Yeah.
Is that, in Scientology, as they are, as someone is getting further and further out the door, one of the things that's run on you is you're bad, you're out ethics, you're off purpose, you have evil purposes, you have it's all this kind of stuff. And you're having that run on you very heavily. And
Hmm.
I think one of the real mind fucks for a former Scientologist speaking out for the first time is, that all of those people who were saying that about you then are now going to go, see, we were right. We
Yeah.
were right. See, we were right all along, and that can be a real mind fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because, like I said, I was a troublemaker in other people's eyes. Like, now I feel like I'm the normal one out of my friend group and stuff like that. Like, I'm the least problematic one, but growing up, I felt like that. Like, within my family and within Scientology, I just felt kind of like, uh, a black sheep, I guess. And I know, like, probably there might be some people that watch this and think that, but at the end of the day, it's like, it really is genuinely sad because I was so in love with Scientology. I just loved helping people. And like I said, that was when my family was really proud of me. And it's like, I dedicated fucking years, like blood, sweat, and tears. So to say that I'm a shitty person just because I don't agree with it, it's just, I mean, so be it. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions and stuff. And if anything, like, I don't know if it's just a me thing or just growing up in Scientology, I have a better, like, perspective on life now because I can see both sides. Because when you come out of a cult, it's like you have to take the rose-colored glasses off and you can see both sides. And I can totally understand, like, now when I talk to people or even, look at my family, I'm like, wow, I can really understand, like, their mindset on stuff. But also I see it like this. So, like, even with problems in my life or politics or anything, like, I always look at, both sides to the story. And I'm just kind of like, don't really pick a side, but I can see every angle to every story and everything. So it's interesting.
Hmm. You mentioned earlier that when you were in Pasadena, your husband's cousin, Atreyu Smith,
Hmm.
is or was, in your opinion, perhaps the closest thing to what Scientology would call a suppressive person that you'd encountered.
Yeah.
Was there anyone who sort of was similar to that in Tampa?
Um, if you're talking about, like, destructiveness, probably Kafir, because
Mm.
he caused a lot of destruction in my life and in others just from his reg cycles alone. And his, like, don't give a fuck attitude because we're important until we're not important. And it's crazy in Scientology because you're always responsible. And that's another thing too. If there is Scientologists watching this, they're probably like, oh well, she was responsible for getting regged and she was responsible for these things. Like, that's the mentality in Scientology. You are solely 100% responsible for your actions and what happens to you. Even if I get jumped tomorrow, like, I somehow pulled it in, it's my responsibility. So the hand that I'm dealt, like, even to this day, it's hard to deprogram that in your brain because you're just like, damn, like, what did I do to, have this happen? Or maybe I could have done something differently. Like, I do regret my time in Scientology. Like, I'll be in my head and I'll be like, damn, I wish I didn't join staff, or I wish I didn't give them all that money. I wish I just walked out the door. But I can't, have that mindset. I just need to move forward and keep on moving. Because even my mom, when I told her, like, that I was upset with the church, she said the same thing, but, like, she was like, why go into specifics when you could just move on and live your life? And I'm just like, sometimes talking about the traumatic shit that's happened to you makes you feel better because it makes, people, you can connect with people that have had similar experiences, or just to get an acknowledgement that something wasn't right, because you're gaslit so much in Scientology that everything's fine, nothing's wrong, that you end up going crazy, like driving yourself crazy. So it'd just
Yeah.
be nice to hear someone be like, oh, you're not crazy. This stuff isn't right. Like, that's all I wanted, was just like to be understood and heard. Like, that's all I wanted. So it's not attacking the church. It's just saying, hey, this happened to me. It's fucked up. And maybe I wouldn't be talking, on your podcast or even about this to other people if I knew it wasn't happening. I know this shit is still happening. I'm not stupid. Like, my cousin Caitlin just got married underage in this York. I know they're still hiring underage people. They're still trafficking minors. And people are being put through the same shit as me that I had to go through and others. So it's like, until something actually is done about it and, you know, something comes to a halt, like, I'm going to say what I have to say because I don't really care to offend anyone.
Yeah, that's great. I got a couple more questions I want to bounce off of you here, and also a little bit of a Scientology quiz, sort of.
Okay.
You'll see where I'm going with this.
Okay.
But before I get to that, so you mentioned the Leah Remini show.
Hmm.
Was that hard for you to watch that the first time whenever you first started watching that? Was that difficult?
Yeah. I like cried a couple times, honestly. Yeah, because
Did
I can relate to it.
Did you know any of the people in the episodes?
Um, well, just kind of like people that I have seen or heard of, not necessarily anybody super close to me or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, from what I can remember, it's been a couple years since I watched it.
So just maybe Sammy's parents then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch all 3 seasons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you have a hard time? Like, I'm trying to, like a Scientologist watching that. If I try to put my shoes in someone who's still a true believer, which I don't think you were by the time you started watching the show, but I
Yeah.
feel like there'd be some combination of, oh, they're making it up, they're all lying, or they're SPs, or, oh, they're exaggerating it and they're attacking because they have to minimize their overts, or it would be, sure, this might have happened, but speaking about it publicly is the wrong thing to do. This could be handled internally. Were you experiencing any of those 3 things, or was it like, holy shit, this is all true, I know it's true, and whatever feelings come along with that?
It's all true. That's what I was thinking. Because, um, brain fart, sorry. When I watched it, I actually was thinking back to when it first came out and I was on staff at Pasadena passing out promo, and I got wind that this show was going to come out, and I just always remember people talking about it like, she's the wicked witch of the West or some shit, and it's terrible stuff and all of it's lies, and they just made it sound so much scarier than it really is. So when I first watched it, I was like, I feel like everyone who's in Scientology should watch it, because then they can come to terms with, freedom of choice. Okay, what is real for me? Like what they say in Scientology. Why can't They're just hypocrites because they're like, oh, free power of choice or whatever true is true for you. But then the second you question anything on anything, they attack you. Because if anyone, I wish, like, when I did watch that show, I was like, man, I wish I could just like tie my parents up and like force them to watch it, because then they would understand it's really not that bad. It's just people telling their stories and they're heartbroken, and it's broken people that have been scammed. You
Yeah.
know, that's literally all I see it as. That's why it like hit home to me, because honestly, even all the videos like that I've seen on YouTube and stuff, like, no one like outwardly like attacks Scientology the way they say they do. If
Yeah.
anything, the most I've heard is like a little bit jadedness of being pissed off, which we've all fucking been there. Like, I've been there, like, talking shit, but nothing like to the point where they say we're attacking. Like, if anything, they attack us when we speak out. So it makes no sense. And any normal Scientologist that's still active in Scientology wouldn't know that, because they're not allowed to look online. And it is so scary when you first cross that line of looking at stuff online, because you're just afraid. You don't even know what you're going to find, because you're just basically gaslit and brainwashed into thinking what's online is criminal and awful, and it's going to pollute your mind and fuck up your bridge progress. And all you want to do is go up the bridge when you're in Scientology.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's true. Like, it's even the stuff on YouTube, the stuff in Leah's show, it's not this like hateful, vitriolic, lock them all up, throw them in jail, shut it down tomorrow. It's just people telling their stories.
Yeah.
And, on my channel, I try to keep it relatively light. I try to keep it fun. I try to keep it funny. I try to keep it engaging. And one of the reasons I do that is because, from 1998 to 2000, there was a 2-year period where my brother and I, we'd left staff, we'd broken our contracts. So we had massive freeloader debts, like $100,000. We'd moved from Philly to Hollywood, and we were still Scientologists, but we were freeloaders. So we weren't allowed to do any Scientology. So we were effectively for 2 years just living in the real world, associating with non-Scientologists. Our whole life was essentially, outside of Scientology, even though we were still considered ourselves Scientologists. Mm-hmm. During that time, I started working at an internet coffee shop on Hollywood and La Brea, and I got introduced to the internet, and I got introduced to Xenu.net, clambake.org. And I was actually exposed to what turned out to be mostly true negative information about Scientology. Mm-hmm. But it was so, like, the environment and the posts and the language and the stories were so hateful. To my memory, as a 17-year-old, they seemed so exaggerated. They seemed so joking and degrading. It seemed so negative and hyperbolic that it was actually hard to believe. It's not that it was hard to experience. It was hard to believe. It was hard to take seriously. And I thought, oh, wow, it really is just a bunch of lying SPs. And nothing I read on that website had any impact on me as far as my desire to continue being in Scientology.
Yeah.
Now, I know that those forums and those websites have helped a lot of other people, but my personal experience is they didn't help me. They repelled me.
Yeah.
And my goal has always been to put out information and talk about Scientology in a way that if you were still a Scientologist or under the radar and you came across my stuff, you'd be like, oh shit, he's saying stuff you're not supposed to say, but he's being pretty fair and he sounds believable.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I've always been striving for. And I'm curious to get your feedback on when you started actually watching things online.
Yeah.
Did you feel that for the most part, the information that was out there was information that was easy for you to believe and easy for you to accept?
Yeah. I feel like it was easy for me because, like I said, I had just a string of things of just crap dealt to me. So at that point, once I put 2 and 2 together with some things and watched all the content and reading stuff, I was just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it was scary to think about how close I was to just that home run of just getting away from everything. It made me wish that I had found it sooner. But again, I realized I was still in the thick of it back then, that maybe if I did stumble upon something, I wouldn't have the same reaction. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's so many people that have gotten in touch with me who are under the radar, who are completely out of Scientology mentally, and are just waiting for certain family members to either leave Scientology or die, before they go public. And it's a lot of people.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, that's where I was. Like, I wanted to do this video 3 years ago, but I didn't because for the sake of my mom, but she disconnected from me about a year ago, and regardless, our relationship's kind of destroyed anyways. So, and I don't know if I could see her even leaving Scientology. The only way I could see people like genuinely like, a lot of like basically all of them gone is if they're exposed for their crimes, like legit, like they're shut down. Because in my own eyes, like I just looked at the success rate, like even when I was on staff, I'm like, okay, people are leaving staff. People are not finishing courses. We can't get any raw public in here. There's no new Scientologists. That's a bad sign. That's a sign that there's something going on deeper. That means people don't fuck with the organization. You know what I mean? Like no one wants to be associated with it. Like it's just little things like that. Like it's all there, but they can't open up their eyes and really see. There's excuses for everything. They have rebuttals for everything, including like my mom, because I'm just like, you see this stuff and, oh, you want to talk about, I was just thinking about back to this one time. It was like 2018 or 19 or something. And I was like broke as hell. Or no, maybe this was 2017 because I was with my ex-husband at the time. And I remember my mom's like, I got you a Christmas present. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet, right? She's like, it's an IS membership. I'm like, do you know what I could have done with 5K right now? An IS membership is a fucking piece of paper that says you're a member of the IS, and she paid $5,000 for that. And she can't even help me survive. Like, that's how twisted their minds are. They have no survival instincts at all. They're like, Scientology, 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 Scientology. That's all they care about. Because, like, my mom promised to get me a condo since I was 14 years old. She's like, oh, once our credit's good, we're going to get you a condo you can rent from us. Never happened. Like, I was broke for so long. Like, finally now I'm doing well. And I know everyone that I was on staff with either lived at home with their parents or a family member or had beater cars and was barely eating. Like, they did not have money. And that was just somehow so normal. It was just normalized. Everyone was just broke. And it feels good finally breaking away from that and being able to save money and be financially responsible and build up my credit again, because no one cares about that in Scientology. They just care about going up the bridge, whatever they have to sacrifice for it. So,
Yeah. It's this weird dichotomy between staff members being so broke and even the orgs themselves being so broke, and Scientology having billions of dollars in the bank.
it's like, how? Like, after I found out about that, I'm just like, I feel like Miscavige is like just buying like fucking Louis Vuitton fucking like outfits every other day or something, or like hiding shit away or something in like a secret account or something. Cause I'm just like, why are you making your people suffer? Why are you making these orgs suffer? If they fucking paid a normal like hourly rate, they probably would have more staff. But they don't even pay their staff.
Right.
And even my grandma, before she passed away, she would tell me stories of her at Narconon, how she literally she would barely be able to eat. Like, they had no money, no food, and how miserable she was.
And Narconon is one of the sectors that actually makes a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, not so much anymore, but yeah, back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've heard stories about Narconon as well. So,
Well, as a sector, I'm sure their revenue is down, but it costs
yeah.
$30,000 to do the Narconon program. And
Yeah.
you know, they've pared down the centers, but Narconon is profitable. Like a Scientology organization is not profitable. Narconon actually is profitable, and they still pay their staff like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, damn. I was just going to ask you a question. It was a good one too. It had to do with Miscavige, and you said buying Louis Vuitton. And then I was like, boom, there was a question. I lost it. I totally lost it.
You're good. I'm just like, the money has to go like somewhere, you know. It's just like, I think maybe he's obsessed with money or something. I don't know.
Yeah. When you hear like the richest Scientologist, Bob Duggan, has donated like $300 million, I just think to myself, Bob, where the fuck do you think that money is going? Honestly, what do you think that money is doing? Have you been in any Scientology orgs?
Yeah, they're all suffering. I literally just feel like they just keep buying properties and just abandoning them. I don't really understand it, but also it's funny that you mentioned that. Like, I have some stories about his son. His son is fucking crazy.
Which
David
son,
Dungan. He literally, like, this is just allegations, but one of my ex-boyfriends used to be like best friends with him, and he told me some stories, and like, so David Dungan would like send him Snapchats of like girls sucking his, you know, like without their consent. Like, he's a predator, his son. And I've heard like he's gotten into some situations with ethics, and since his dad is such a high donor, they just kind of like sweep it underneath the rug every single time. And he's a strange kid. Like, I've just heard like really gross, weird stories about him, honestly. And that's again another situation where it's like, if you have money and status, shit just goes underneath the rug. But if you're a normal civilian like me, you just get in trouble for the smallest shit that isn't even sequitur to what other people are doing. So it's all about money in there.
Was David Duggan a Clearwater-based Scientologist or LA?
Yeah, Clearwater.
Mm.
Yeah.
Was he ever on staff or just a public?
Just a public. He was like flag public. But we all these kids that were out here, they all like, we were all mutual friends of one another, you know?
Were you ever friends with Connor Cruz?
No, never met him. Oh, but I was semi friends with Dougie Fresh's son. Yeah. I forgot his
I
name.
didn't know Dougie had a son.
Yeah, I think his name's like Jonathan or something. I could be wrong. No, what was his name? I forgot. But so
Was his name
Jacob Ronan's little
Jonathan?
sister. Jacob's Ronan. Wait, what?
Was his name Jonathan Fresh?
No, I don't think it was Jonathan. What was it? I'm trying to think.
No, the joke is I know Dougie Fresh's last name isn't really Fresh, but I have no idea what his last name really is.
Yeah, no, there's a scandal with him. Everyone has scandals, and it's so funny because I'm just like, everyone talks shit, and everyone knows like shit spreads like wildfire in Scientology. They love the drama because they got nothing else better going on. So it's like you could point fingers at someone else, but they're doing shit behind the lines too because Dougie Fresh was living at Flag and he had like a big fucking bag of money, like a big stack. And it looked like some Breaking Bad shit. I don't know how much it was, but apparently his son, who's also, I believe he's closeted gay, but you know, I don't know. Cause he does like males, like he's literally hit on males when we've hung out together, but you know how Scientology is, like you can't be like outwardly gay. So I'm pretty sure he's closeted, but he would steal like hundreds of thousands of dollars from this bag and would take all the friends shopping, like Gucci and all that shit. And then come to find out his dad found like the bag and there was like no money left. And apparently it was the wife and his son, and they were like both stealing from him, and they blamed it on like a maid at Flag. So then like the maids were being like called out, and you know, those poor like foreigners that are like maids in the Flag building, they're probably getting chewed the fuck out. Come to find out, I think he finally confessed to his dad that like it was him that took the money, and then his dad had to like do some more tours or whatever to make money back. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
What were you saying about Jacob and David Duggan?
Oh, just Jacob's little sister, Julia, who's also named Julia. That was her best friend, was Dougie Fresh's son. So they were like besties. So that's how I knew about him. He would always come over and hang out. Jonah, that's his name. His name's Jonah. So I was close.
Jonah Fresh?
I guess so. I mean, I don't know if he goes to Delphi anymore, but he went to Delphi when I was out there.
So basically, I'm trying to find out what Dougie Fresh's last name is, but you don't know?
No, I have no idea. I didn't even know like who Dougie Fresh was. That's not my generation.
I'm sure I can easily Google it. I've just never bothered and never known.
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me that Dougie Fresh's kids are also Scientologists.
Well, I think he only has one son or he could have more, but that was just the one son that was like living with them at Flag. So.
Wow. Yeah, the Duggan kids, you know, I think Serge, if I recall correctly. Yeah, this is true. You know, Serge Delmar, Serge Hill. No,
I don't.
Oh, okay. I've done some videos with him. He was an auditor at Flag, a supervisor at Flag. And did you ever know Jonathan DeKevitt? Jono? No.
Possibly. Did he have like a limp?
No. Oh, that would be Tyler Fisk.
I don't know who that is, but maybe we're thinking about a different person.
That's fine. Serge and Jono. Anyway, Jono's mom was one of the main Sea Org fundraisers, Charmaine Rogers. I think she was like the main fundraiser for the ship and then for Superpower and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, when Serge and Jono left the Sea Org, they basically got assigned to be the caretakers / auditors for Bob Duggan's kids. And at least Serge was paid in like pharmacyclic stock. Because Bob Duggan was the CEO.
Oh, wait, you're cutting out a little bit.
Testing.
I lost you for a second.
How about right now?
Okay, you're back.
We're back? Okay.
Yeah, you're just cutting out for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and Serge was paid in stock. It's like stock, stock in the company that Bob was the CEO of, Pharmacyclics.
Yeah.
And that company is how Bob became a billionaire. And so you had his these kids who were basically just kind of being taken care of by ex-Sea Org members and would just be, they're basically just being made to do Scientology. Like he just put his kids in the hands of Scientologists, basically.
Yeah.
Just one of those things where Scientologists think is, as long as my kids are in the hands of Scientologists, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, that's how my mom's mentality was. So.
Yeah. Now remind me, because I feel like I'm slightly conflating Bob Duggan's kids with another very rich Scientologist who adopted a bunch of kids. Were half of them adopted?
I thought that was like, maybe not Tom Cruise, but I thought that was somebody else.
There's another Scientologist here. Oh my, I can't even believe I'm blanking on his name. He was a partners in a fund with Kurt Feshbach, Bulldog Capital. Oh my God, it's gonna actually, I have to Google this. I'm not gonna be able to let this go. Bulldog Capital, Scientology. Wow. I'm not going to be able to let this one go. Kurt Feshbach. Oh, well, I'm going to have to let it go.
I hate when that happens. I get brain farts all the time. I just can't remember shit.
All right. One more thing to see if I can. Nope, it's behind a paywall. Okay, forget it. All right. Anyhow, I forget why I was mentioning that. Oh, but Bob Duggan's got a bunch of kids, doesn't he?
All I know is David Duggan.
Okay.
So that's all I've heard. I'm sure he's probably the most problematic one. That's probably why I've heard of him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can imagine there's probably nothing that David Duggan could do that his daddy's money wouldn't, no trouble he could get in Scientology that his daddy's money wouldn't save him from.
In a way, yeah. I mean, after like seeing the Danny Masterson case, like that's like a good win on like the victim sides and stuff. And it makes me want like more people to come out about their experiences and stuff, because I do feel like Scientology sweeps away a lot of stuff, because there's just even instances that are coming up in my head of just really red flag shit that they just sweep underneath the rug. So
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the Danny Masterson thing, because that's one of the things I noted down here to mention is that, I am personally surprised that I've not been contacted by anybody who says that I was in Scientology and the Danny Masterson thing is what opened my eyes. You know what I mean? Like, I've never been contacted by somebody that was like, I never thought that we as an organization would cover up a rapist's crimes.
Oh, so it's making people like open their eyes and stuff.
I've never been contacted by someone who said I was in Scientology and I was so horrified by what came out in the Danny Masterson trial that was the last straw for me.
Yeah.
And I'm mentioning this as a bit of a disappointment, because I feel like if I was still in Scientology and I learned everything that had come out in the Danny Masterson trial, that it would have meant something to me. But it's possible that I'm only saying that because I've been out for so long and I forget just how easy it would have been to explain it away,
Yeah.
And it seems like Scientology did do a pretty good job of getting current Scientologists to explain away a lot of the stuff that was in the Leah Remini show,
Yeah. Well, they'll just ask people's family members to just talk bad things about people, being like, oh, well, so-and-so is a troublemaker and all this stuff. Like, I've known people that have been doing those type of videos, like when I was in Scientology, about other people, and I didn't know what the fuck it was. I didn't understand it at the time. But now looking back at it, it's just like the videos that they make to try to, lessen the evil of it, just being like, oh, look, it's not our fault. It's actually this person. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Because like, I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, in the reality of it, like, yeah, they are sweeping it underneath the rug and they're making an excuse, but I think it's just their brainwashed to think that Scientology can literally salvage anything. So if you have a pedophile and he's doing this shit, not fully committing a full crime, but somewhat, they think that Scientology can like cure them in a way, or that it's Scientology's duty to handle this cycle, not the police's. Because like growing up, like my mom was always scared of police, government. Like that's what Scientology believes. Like they are scared of like government officials, police, psychs and stuff. So it's like, it's interesting being an adult now because I'm like, oh, actually, police are cool. They help us, and government's fine and stuff like that, and like medical help is fine. But you don't think that like they basically make you become a paranoid person. My mom is like a hypochondriac.
Is she?
Yes. She's like, I remember she went on a whole tangent about like vaccines and stuff because I know they're really anti-vaccines and stuff. And I'm like, I got vaccinated and I'm fine. And it was just like little shit like that. Like she wouldn't even want me using Advil and stuff. So especially like when she found out I was self-medicating with marijuana, she just flipped her shit. She's like, oh my God. Like, and I'm like, you do, like, it's funny how like judgmental they are to that because I'm like, most Scientologists that I grew up with, they go drinking every weekend.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
I know.
I'm just ruining my lungs. You're ruining your liver, So what's the difference?
And especially if you do edibles instead of smoking, you're not even ruining your lungs.
True.
It's so weird to see Scientologists so passionately fighting against legislation that would decriminalize or legalize marijuana. It's the weirdest thing.
Fighting against it?
Oh my God, so hard.
Why?
I guess they're like, LRH wouldn't want it to be legal. This is an important issue.
I'm sure LRH smoked up. So let's be real.
LRH was a total pothead. We know it.
And that's another thing too of like when I watched that video, like basically showing what a fraud he was, I'm like, it finally clicked to me. I'm like, a sci-fi writer. That's not weird at all. Like when we're in Scientology, we don't think that's weird that he was a sci-fi writer. Because what if he's making it all up? Like it doesn't make sense.
I remember that I was just always told that he was able to write all that science fiction because he was writing from his whole track memories.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's why he was so good at it. That's what he was just writing from his whole track recall.
Yeah.
Because he was Buddha and he has whole track recall.
Dude. And there's like so much like hearsay in Scientology. Like I've heard so many weird random stories, and you know how they're like so crazy about like no like verbal tech. That's what they say. Like you can't say verbal tech. But the stories I've been told, like I was literally told from a Sea Org member one time that the Led Zeppelin song Stairway to Heaven was about a Scientologist, and that it was about a Scientologist joining the Sea Org. And I was just like, at the time I really believed it.
Wait, and the idea there that the song was pro Scientology?
Yes.
Oh, see, I was told the opposite.
Oh, really?
That it was anti-Scientology. The stairway to heaven is the bridge, and all that glitters is not gold. In other words, the promise of Scientology is not. Yeah. Are you buying? Wait, what are the lyrics? Are you like, buying the stairway to heaven?
She's buying a stairway to heaven.
Yeah, buying your way up the bridge, buying a stairway to heaven.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But that it's bad. It was like a derogatory.
Yeah, they were trying to say like the Beatles like stayed in the Fort Harrison one time or something. I don't even fucking know. Like the
Rolling Stones, and by the way, it was the Fort Harrison before the Scientology owned it.
Oh, okay.
The Rolling Stones did stay in the Fort Harrison and write one of their famous songs there. That's sort of a known
so they can't
fact.
Claim that because it's not technically the Fort Harrison.
Yeah, it wasn't
just the building before the Fort Harrison.
Exactly. I heard one of these stories of like, so they were out on the bridge of the Apollo with LRH and a UFO was in the sky and people were all pointing to the UFO like, oh my God, look, it's a UFO. And LRH come up and he was like, those are not our friends.
What? Dude, what the dude, I can't. Like the stories, they're so funny. They're so funny. I've heard so many random stories. Like even people just like, you know how they say, oh, don't talk about like your whole track or whatever with other people. But like when I was a teenager, I would be hearing like these grown ass men talking about their whole track and how they bombed a whole planet and it was crazy. And I was just like, damn, that's cool. Crazy. And I'm just like, I didn't quite fully like not believe them just because I wasn't at that level yet, but I was just like, why are we even like discussing this right now? Like it was just it was so random. I'm just like, okay, cool.
How about this? I remember being on the Pro TRs course at Flag, and this guy was having trouble getting through one of the TRs, and he got a pink sheet to do some false data stripping, and I was assigned to do the false data stripping, and we're going through the steps, and he's like, so I'm on the bridge of a spaceship, and I've got my laser ray gun, and I literally called the supervisor over because I didn't know that you had to stick to the auditor's code on false data stripping yet. And I called the supervisor over. I'm like, this guy's completely wasting our time right now.
Dude, I literally fucking can't. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
It was Nigel Hall from Toronto. You know, these people love going whole track because it makes them feel like they're extra special Scientologists. Yeah. Oh yeah. So we were in a war and I was on the bridge of the spaceship. We had our ray guns out. I was like, oh dear fucking Jesus God.
It feels like a bunch of like 5-year-olds talking like about like their imagination. Like it really, like looking back at it, it's just so crazy to me that it was so normalized.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is my little Scientology quiz. It's not really a quiz, but you'll see. So if a non-Scientologist referred to a Scientologist derogatorily as a clam, would you understand the reference?
What's a clam?
I mean, would you even get it? Would you be like,
No.
I don't understand. Why are you calling a Scientologist a clam?
No.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Wait, what is that?
Well, exactly. Well, I'll explain what some people think the reference is.
No.
But before I do, I'll ask the follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have done a ton of Scientology courses, but you grew up in the Scientology culture.
Mm-hmm.
What was your understanding of a Scientologist belief in evolution, the physical evolution, natural selection, the evolution of the human body?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't even know how to answer that. I feel like I don't even remember like even talking about. I mean, I know Elridge like talks about evolution in one of his books, but I don't even think I got to that basic book. But
so regardless, the fact that you don't know is at least an indicator that it's not a particularly important issue in Scientology.
No, they don't care about it.
If someone asked you, do Scientologists believe in evolution? What would your answer be?
Maybe, probably not, honestly, because they don't believe in God or anything like that. So maybe not.
Well, normally people who believe in God don't believe in evolution.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay.
So they do believe in evolution? Like the frog becoming a monkey or something?
So you have the frog fucking a monkey.
I don't know. Like, again, I have an 8th grade education. Like, I'm not book smart, so I don't know any of this shit.
So normally, and I run the risk of oversimplifying it, but on one end of the spectrum, you have evolution and natural selection, where over billions of years through procreation of organisms that have the most survival traits, you just wind up with evolution. And on the other side, you have creationism, which is God created everything.
Okay.
So if you're like a Roman Catholic and you believe in creationism, you believe on day 1, God did this, on day 2, God did this, on day 3, God did this. And on one of these days, he created the human race. Mm-hmm. And so evolution does not exist. It's not a thing. A true hardcore Roman Catholic would not believe in evolution. Yeah. Now, Scientologists don't believe in a supreme being, and they don't believe in creationism per se. And Scientologists do believe in evolution. But in one of L. Ron Hubbard's books, or a number of them, he introduces this idea of a genetic entity, which is like sort of like theta plasma. Like, it's weird. It never made any sense to me. Yeah. But in the book History of Man, he talks about the fact that certain parts of the human body have evolved from different evolutionary lines, and that the jaw, the hinge of the jaw, evolved from the hinge of a clam.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
And that one of the engrams that you can find on people's whole track, because of the genetic entity, it's almost like the genetic entity is like, and it's not a thetan. Yeah. It sticks with the body. It sticks with the body and the DNA somehow. Yeah. And it never made any fucking sense at all. But LRH said that you can find these incidents on the track of a clam, and it opens up, but it gets like sand and salt water in it, and it gets irritated, and it's trying to get out. And that if you run this incident, your jaw will start to hurt, and you'll get like locked jaw and stuff. And
I've never heard of that.
And someone somewhere decided that, well, first of all, it's kind of funny. Yeah. It's kind of funny. So it's fun to make fun of. Yeah. But so Operation Clam Bake is a reference to this, and calling Scientologists clams is
Mhm.
supposed to be a derogatory word based on the fact that Scientologists think that we in part came from clams.
Interesting. I heard like
And
clay people before, like on your
clay
whole track, that we were like once clay people or something.
clay people. Yes, but you see, there's a difference between some body that you might have occupied on some other planet in some other solar system. There's a
Yeah.
difference between that and how the human body on Earth evolved.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. And so it's funny because if you were to ask any Scientologist, do you think humans evolved from clams? They would say, no, we don't think that.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, the
not what
LRH wrote
Scientologists
about
actually,
it.
it was like, but he was only talking about one part of the human body,
Yeah.
right? He
I mean,
wasn't
there's
saying,
so much shit that LRH has wrote, like, there's no way to even, like, compact everything. It's
yeah,
just all bunch of, like, crap everywhere. It's like
yeah,
and then there's stuff that contradicts itself, and it's just confusing as hell. So I'm not surprised that there's, like, verbal tech and shit like that, because it's just like, "Well, what about this, and then that?" And there's just so much, and it's like, it's
yeah.
too much.
It's funny because I get like weirdly defensive about this point, and it's not that I care about what L. Ron Hubbard said. It's that I go,
Yeah.
you guys know that Scientologists don't even get the insult, right? Like it doesn't even work as an insult. And also
Yeah.
it sounds like a slur. Like calling someone a clam sounds like a slur.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Okay, good. Just
I
wanted to
think the
check.
most I've like a bad word would be like Sinos. If you say that, that's like a slur in Scientology. If you say, "Oh,
Yeah.
Sino," they're like,
I
"Where'd you
know.
learn that word from?" Like,
Yes. Yes. Or
but they
Ron Bot.
call normal people wogs.
Right.
So,
Did you know when you were in Scientology? Because I know I didn't, that in a good number of countries
mhm.
that LRH would have known this. WOG is an actual racial slur.
Really? I didn't even
In
know
the
that.
in the UK, it is a slur.
Damn. So I guess
LRH
UK org is not using that word.
LRH would have known that.
Oh, so he knew.
And in Australia, it is
Yeah.
a racial slur.
Oh, wow. I didn't even
LRH
know that.
would have known that.
Damn. He's savage.
Imagine adopting a word that you know damn well in half of the countries is a racial slur, and
Yeah.
all of your members say it all the time.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that. I mean, we didn't I guess we said it a lot in Div 6, but I don't
Oh
really
yeah.
think but yeah, it's in the dictionary, in the Scientology dictionary, so
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, how do you feel about having spoken about all this?
I feel good. Yeah, I'm just like again, hopefully people will understand where I'm coming from and know it's not from, like, a place of hate, and I'm just trying to live my life and move forward from the whole situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, good. If you think of anything that you want to discuss or some little story that you want to tell or some chat that you want to have, just let me know anytime. Always happy to do so.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Aaron.
My pleasure. Thank you for doing this as well. I appreciate it. I mean, it's been a long time coming.
I know, 3 years in the making. So,
All right, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us. And as always, thank you to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, Oh, Dancing on my love, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.